Well, you know what, maybe rather than, I'm sorry, I should have asked you this beforehand, but rather than have a chase, let me just, I'll get the land acknowledgement up and I'll read that, and we'll forego the national anthem for today, just in the interest of getting going. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past, to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. Is there any pecuniary interest to disclose on the part of councillors?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, through you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to declare an interest in regards to item 4.1 and in particular item 16-440-4, which is the road grants. So when that item comes up, I will mute myself and turn my video off.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll make a note of that. Thank you. Anything else? If not, could I get a mover and seconder, please, to approve the agenda as circulated?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by
I'll
second.
that's Councillor Bray. Seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate. I should have checked, but you can hear us, Councillor Woods, I assume. Is that right? Oh, there he is. Great. Thank you very much.
I can hear you
Make
okay.
sure we're not missing you. Okay. Well, next, for purposes of our budget discussion, we'd like to move into committee of the whole. Could I get a mover and seconder, please?
I'll move,
Moved
Mr.
by Councillor Woods, seconded by.
I can second that,
Councillor Nash. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Let this meeting move into committee of the whole at 3:08 p.m. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you. All right, that then brings us into the discussion of the budget. So I guess what I'll do, our treasurer Manish is on the call this morning, this afternoon, and he did provide us with a sort of an introductory statement about the budget, but I'll ask him if he wants to go and if he wants to make any comments to introduce it before we get into the going through the changes from the last meeting.
Hello, council member, through you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
This budget is overall, there is a shortfall of $183,597. This consists of operating shortfall of $82,395 and capital shortfall of $101,202. The operating shortfall can be funded by either increasing a tax rate or reduction should be considered in the operating budget in order to stay in the tax rate increase of 6.5% or less. The capital shortfall of $101,202 can be funded through the reserve or debt financing for fee of the project. Alternatively, a reduction in some capital projects should be considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions just regarding the introductory pages, the first 3 pages of the package?
Nope.
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, thank you. I talked to Manish and Michelle this morning, so I had a lot of questions that I had clarified. I'm not sure whether the rest of council, are privy to those same answers. So they may have the same questions that I had. So I won't be asking as many questions as I would have before that conversation. So I'm more concerned that of course 180 some odd thousand is a shortfall is another 6% on top of the 6.5 is 12.5%, right? Is where we're sitting, and that's before we even consider another 60,000 up at Wawashkesh for a dock and a parking lot, right? So if you look at that, we're really looking at 14% or 14.5%, which of course is unpalatable. And so we need to obviously cut where we can. I've looked at other municipalities where they're coming in. Not that should necessarily be a guide, but I mean, I think McKellar's in the 6% area. I think I asked Manish to check that out, so I don't know whether it is 6 or I thought it was that area. Magneto one I understand was 5. I just heard from someone that Carling's 4.7. So in my mind, I think 6.5% is certainly the inflationary increase. So I'd like to personally, from my standpoint, I'd like to see us stay in that area and cut whatever way we can, 183,000. Having said that, I think I understand this after being 15 years on council, but I realize it's hard when you're going through it the first or even second or third time. So what I wouldn't want us to do is to get bogged down, right? I would suggest respectfully that we look at, first of all, the operating budget and then the capital budget. And each counselor get to kind of say, okay, here's what I would slash without debate, right? Like, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do that, we'll do that. And then we add it up and say, okay, that's 60 grand or 80 grand or whatever it is. And then, circle back and say kind of, well, I don't agree with what Councillor Lamb, I think we can't cut that or whatever, right? So I think we need to do that. We need to do it snappily, or I don't want to sit 2.5 hours into the meeting and we're discussing little items. And I don't think we should get, sideways into detail on what we're going to do necessarily, right? Or we'll again get bogged down. So those are just my general comments. I think we can make it. I think we can get there. It won't be easy. There will be people that won't like maybe what we want, but I think we have to this year cut and do what we can. But having said that, rest assured, this is a bit like between a rock and a hard place. This year or next year, there's going to be some heavy lifting that's going to be required. So, and there's no use, just saying, well, we'll cut this, that, and whatever, and then we'll just move it to next year. If we're going to continue to have next year's projects on the docket, because we're just going to have a 15% increase or something next year. So what we, particularly in the capital things, we have to make sure that when we say we're going to move this to next year, if we do that next year's gets moved out and the year after gets moved out. So we're just readjusting the whole platform, or we're just fooling ourselves, right? And anyway, those are sort of my general comments. And as I say, I think I got a lot of my questions answered. Anyway, okay, that's all the intro I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Well, any other general comments to start with before we get going down this into the specific items?
Yeah, if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might. First of all, I wanted to thank staff for putting this together. I know it's a lot of work trying to go through all of council's comments and trying to rejuggle numbers around. So I appreciate all the time that all of staff has put into it. I also, just in a couple things in the treasurer's report for the first 3 pages there, just to go over a few things. I think it's great that that the municipality's been able to transfer the $100,000 from one of the firefighter reserve funds to the pumper reserve fund, I'll call it. So I think that's great that that's been looked into and can be done, which will help on the purchase of a fire truck down the road. So I think that's great. A couple questions that I had, which maybe we'll get into later, was I just flagged a few things on the first cover page. And I know it says that employee benefits have increased at 45%. I don't know if that's standard all across the board for all the municipalities, but I know it's been noted in a couple of them, so maybe there can be some mention of that later on. And then when it comes to the 101,000, which noted is to be determined, I noticed that on page 2 of that original report, and I think Manish, you'd mentioned it, it says the capital shortfall can be funded through the reserve or debt financing. So I'm just wondering, and I'll ask if it can be answered now before I finish, but it says the capital shortfall, which would be $101,202, can be funded through the reserve or debt financing for a few of the projects. Has that already been accounted for, or do we still need to allocate the 101,000 either more to reserves or more to debt financing? Would you be able to answer that, Manish?
Through you, Mayor,
Go ahead.
that is not been funded at. If the reserve, we have 101.4 million. If you use that, you can reduce that from the reserve, or some of the project we can do a debt financing. That is not part of the budget. It should be like it is a shortfall on the capital side.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was one of my main questions. Then just finally wrapping it up, I think just in summary, when we look at again the 3-page report, I think we're still proposing. I'm just looking at some numbers here. Proposed loans of 440,000 or so, proposed reserve draw of 636,000, and we still have this 101 shortfall and an operating shortfall, which added up to I think another 100,000 or so. So altogether, we're still in a deficit if we're looking at borrowing or reserve funding of almost 1.3 million. So I know it's going to be really hard, really tight. We're going to have to try and delay some projects and do things like that. And I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that needs to be cut that nobody will like. And one of the main things, and it's the very last comment, Manish, and I don't know if you can answer this. When I looked back to the March 22nd report that you'd written, it said that the optimum, just trying to get the number here, the optimum allocation into the reserves is, it said here, just let me find in my notes, the optimum addition to the reserves is 636,000 or 637,000 if it's rounded. And when I look at everything we're doing, when you take out what we're putting in versus what we're withdrawing, we're only adding about 175,000 to the reserve. So we're really short almost 450,000 of what would be the optimum amount to be adding to the reserve. So I think we as council really need to look at that and say, if we've taken out a few jobs today, what can we do to add more to our reserves? Because I think if we have this AMP report, which is saying we should be putting in optimally 637,000, and when we take our add-ins and withdrawals, we're only really adding 173,000. I think that's really going to be a wake-up call in a couple of years, and I think it's something that we really need to look at and possibly add some more to today when we're taking stuff away. Anyways, that's all. Thank you for listening, everybody. And I agree, hopefully we can get done by 6:30. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other general comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's the older treasurer here at the moment.
Oh.
I just wanted to make a couple of comments. The reason that we identify shortfalls for operating and for capital is because they're fundamentally funded separately. And you have a very long, wide sheet that Manish has given you that is
I'm sorry, Barb, we're losing you a bit there.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, there's a very wide sheet that you received with capital. If you look on that wide sheet, the very last, second to last column is the TBD column, and those are the projects that did not easily fit into the other funding sources for capital. You fund your capital through, you have a couple of grants that you get that are specifically for capital. You fund your capital through debt financing, which are restricted to assets, and you fund it also through reserves, which was the intent of the asset management plan that you put money in. As Councillor Nash mentioned, it put in about $637,000 a year, which of course now is affected by inflation. And then you draw the money out, and that's the intent. That's your savings account. You put money in on a regular basis, and you generally draw it out, not quite as smoothly as the way that you would put it in. But the far right-hand column is showing you the very specific projects that did not easily fit into any of those classifications. They are not generally asset-based, they are more project-based, and you have discretion in how you might want to fund that. If you chose to fund some of those projects out of a reserve fund, it may not necessarily be for that purpose. Those are your reserve funds. You have that option to do that. The operating shortfall is different. It's funded primarily through taxes, your OMPF grant, and a number of smaller revenues. That budget has an $80,000 shortfall. That's your day-to-day operational account that you have monies that you are saving and putting into your reserves. It doesn't tend to go up and down to the same extent as capital. That's why sorting out the shortfall on the operating side is going to be important and can have an impact on the services that you provide. So I just wanted to help you understand the differences between the two budgets. They're almost different funds entirely and how they're funded. I guess if I were to say, if you went in and canceled a capital project, it may not solve the problem that we have on the operating side because it may be debt financed. So that doesn't have an effect on the operating budget other than maybe we save a little bit of interest. And given the fact that it's just interest expense on the operating side right now, it wouldn't make that big a difference. Or if it's funded from reserves, that doesn't make any difference in your operating budget because your operating budget is your day-to-day account. So as you go through this process, I just wanted to help identify that if you decide to cut something, you have to think about whether or not how it's helping or whether it's helping.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Appreciate it. Well, I guess, I mean, I'll just make, if there aren't any other general comments, I would just make maybe two. The first one is, I guess, what I was trying to think of as I went through this was, are we missing any significant things that we didn't, that we've talked about, or that we might expect to you know, we might decide later, like for example, when we do finish our strategic plan, we might say, oh gee, there was something else we were going to do. An example might be if we had some sort of an initiative that we were going to do with respect to attainable housing or something like that. So, you know, but anyway, I think we have to work with what we have here at the moment. And I think most of the things have been that I was concerned about have been captured. There may be one or two little things. I guess the other comment that I would make is that there is a question in my mind, and I know we reached out and we asked the Shared Services Board the question. There is a question in the back of my mind as to whether we will in fact be paying the $250,000 for the Pool and Wellness Center in 2023 as opposed to early 2024. Their thought is that there would be shovels in the ground by the end of 2023, but that might, I think there's some chance that might not happen. However, to Barb's last point, I guess there's a question as to how much that would really affect us this year, because if it happened very close to the end of this year, there would be a relatively small amount of interest involved, I'm assuming, and so maybe it doesn't make a lot of difference, but that's sort of a segue into saying we have kicked a fair bit of stuff down the road into 2024. And Councillor Lamb mentioned this earlier. We are putting off. We're setting ourselves up for another increase. And finally, speaking of increases, the thing that you and I don't know. I don't honestly know where the other municipalities are at in their processes, but I will just say this. You can't use Seguin as an example. Seguin has a very large industrial base, larger than the rest of West Parry Sound put together, including the town of Parry Sound. So, you know, their residential tax rate, which is what you're comparing, it tends to be quite favorable. They're also, their residential tax base itself is very substantial too, but you know, a lot of expensive properties on the lakes down there, but still. So yeah, they got a lot of help from their industrial and commercial tax bases that helps to keep the residential rate well, and they're not in the same boat that we are. They don't the residential and industrial and commercial tax rates are not the same. So just a comment about those. Anyway, let's, if we can, I think Councillor Lamb's suggestion was a good one. My suggestion would be that we go through and we can do it one person at a time, or we can go through a page at a time. I don't think it matters, but try to find the things that still where there is still a concern, starting with the operating budget, of course. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my preference would be to just do it using the pages of the document that you have in front of you, and because there are not that many pages here. So if you look at page 4, which is general government expenses.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
through you, like I have written down in the operating all the changes I would make. And again, without debate, I'm willing to go through that. And that may tick off a lot of boxes that other councillors have on their mind or not. And then I would suggest that I can certainly go first, and that and again, then the others can say, well, I'd like to add to this. And again, I'm looking mostly on the trying to bring the 83,000 down. And I think if we can do that, you know, and then say, okay, what are we down to? Oh, we're down to 20,000. Well, you know, who doesn't agree with what's been slashed? And then we can debate that and quickly come to a conclusion. Otherwise, as I say, it's going to be a slow process. So,
All right, if you want to go first, that's fine. We can do it.
Yeah, and again, with no disrespect to anyone, these are just things that I have. So I'll just give them by account number 16,250. And I'm looking at a written list, so I find this it's so small, it's hard for me to see the papers that we have. So anyway, Station 1 truck, I've suggested we take $1,000 out of that. I'm not going to go into what the numbers are, but I think there's room to take $1,000 out of that if you look at what we spent in the past. 16,254, same thing
That
for
was
the
truck, sorry, that was truck number 10.
16,250, Station 1 truck 10.
Yeah, okay. You
I'm
want to take
suggesting
off, you
out-
want to take off what, $1,000?
$1,000. 16,254, the van, I'm suggesting we take off $1,000. 16,304, training, I'm suggesting we take off $2,500. Okay.
What number was that? Sorry, Counselor Lamb.
16,304. I've got written down training.
All right.
I'm suggesting we take off 2,500. Now we go into, I think, the Works Department, but 16,310, the GPS, that keeps going up. I'm suggesting we could cut 500 there, which doesn't seem like a lot, but we got 83,000 in total to make up. So,
Sorry, Councillor Lamb, you're gonna have to slow down just because I'm trying to get this on my pages so I can.
oh, I'm sorry.
not gonna
I'm
do
sorry.
it. So 16,304 training, you wanted to take off how much?
2,500.
Oh, reduce it to 5,000.
Yeah, I haven't got that number. I've just got reduced
Okay,
by
20 all
25.
right.
16,310,
Yeah.
which
that's
is
roads, GPS
yeah.
maintenance.
GPS reduced by 500. I'm going to come back to gravel. 16,478. I didn't write anything down for that. I said reduce it by 2,500. 16,478.
16,478. This was gravel again?
Can you repeat that, please?
Well, I've written down, maybe I've got the wrong, 16,478. What's that say?
Landfill monitoring.
Okay, I'm suggesting we take out 2,500 out of that. Because it's gone up quite a bit compared to what it was. This is one that some won't like, but I think we have to push off the ice cap at 15,000. I think we need to push that into next year. That, I don't know what number ice cap is, but there's $15,000 in there for that.
But that's
16
that's an operating cost.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Not
that's what,
capital. So you're pushing it off to next year. We're
no, I
well,
realize.
okay, I don't know. Anyway, I understand. what you're saying.
It's operating. I realize I'm not getting into capital things, I don't think. So, so I'm suggesting 15 come off there. 16,710, the internet at the community hall. We've got 2 systems going. And we don't have to pay 3,000. We can get rid of ViaNet or whatever's up there and keep the other one, the Starlink system. So I'm suggesting we can take 12,000 off that.
What account is that one in now?
That's 16,710 internet.
Counselor Lamb, the number's only 3,200. You're suggesting we take 12,000 or 1,200 off, sorry.
The internet, 1,200.
1,200, okay.
I need to understand the 16,774, which is the facility truck is $10,000. I'd like to know how much we've got in that truck and how old it is. And again, sometimes we have to drive our cars or trucks a little longer than we want to. And I take it this is the truck that we were going to replace and that runs around the municipality. But I've got some question on that 10,000, which is reserve. you can leave in the swim program, but I doubt it's going to go 16,790-4, which is the swim program, which is 5,000. Unfortunately, what we've done, and I know this from Cass' background and my own background in swimming, we've set up a regime that makes it nearly impossible for us to find a swim instructor because we're affiliated with the Royal Life Saving Society, and it just makes it very difficult. These kids have to go out, get certified, pay $300. The system is not training lifeguards in that sense. And we've set up this regime that we can't just get some lifeguard who used to lifeguard 10 years ago to go and do the swim program because they can't do it. The Lions were able to do it. But anyway, I don't think it's going to go, but there's 5,000 there. But anyway, I'm coming to an end here. 16,803, the library, the 5,500 for the lights, which is in the budget, which I added sort of not knowing the full impact of all this last meeting. I think they can be put off and we can look for a grant for that instead of, but I think we can save 5,500 there. My last one, before I have just a couple things, 16,845-2, which is CINO. Michelle, when I was talking to you this morning, you weren't sure whether we had cut the check for that. Do you know whether we have?
Yes, we have, Councillor Lamb.
Okay, well, it's pretty hard to get our check back, so that comes off my list. That was 6,200. So I only have two other small questions. 16,485, Harris Lake. I know we put this bin out there and it's $1,000 or something. It's somewhere else in there, but what's the $2,800 for? What the heck is that? You know, it seems to me like we're just paying $2,800 to Harris Lake for I'm not sure we even know what we're paying it for, or do we?
Oh, through you, Mr. Mayor. The $2,800 is for garbage. So there's a number of cottages, I think there's 14 out there, who utilize the garbage services at Harris Lake Marina. And Harris Lake Marina takes care of the garbage and gets rid of it on behalf of the municipality.
Okay, we'll leave that. The only other comment I'll make, and then I'll leave it up to other councillors, is 16,375 gravel, which is $195,000. If we cut capital projects, I read the gas tax thing yesterday and whatever, and there's a lot of things you can do with respect to this. I think you can use the gas tax and the whatever it's called, OFFB, whatever that other grant is, on the gravel. So if we don't use it on a project like the Bunny Trail, if we were to cancel that, we can apply those grants, in my opinion, to gravel. And so I'd like an answer eventually to that, because that's a pretty big amount of money, right? So am I wrong? Can it not be used? I mean, what's the difference whether you're slurry sealing and using it for that, or filling cracks, or you're actually putting gravel and improving the roads? Like, why couldn't we use the gas tax over there and therefore cancel a project, and you could find like 220,000, for instance, on the Bunny Trail? So that's a question I have. And that's really all I have. I'm sure there's others that will have something, but can someone answer me whether these grants, those two grants can be used, or whatever they're called, can be used on gravel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, it's
Go ahead.
It's Barb. Both of those grants are for capital improvements. I mean, it would be, to some degree, it would be a comment probably from Dave Creaser as well. My understanding is that the gravel that is in the operating budget is being covered by and is used and is being covered predominantly by the gravel grant that we use and use, that we receive and use for operating gravel. The gas tax and the OSIF grants, you have to give them where the project, the very specific project is in your asset management plan, the improvement to the road, the distance of the road. It's those two grants are really more in tune with actual capital projects where you're improving, bringing the road back up for another 10 years. Whereas straight gravel would be more inclined to be, I'm thinking, again, up to Dave, but I'm thinking it's more for maintenance. And as I say, we do have $119,000 coming in revenue for gravel, for a grant that is supposed to be used to
But-
cover the part of this.
But Barb, there's a difference between 195 and the 115 or 120 is 75,000. So I'd like to make sure that that we cannot say we're applying 75,000 of either one of these other grants to gravel. I'd like a determination of that. Again, I'm throwing out whether it's good, bad, or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, unless someone says you can't do that, then I want to see why we can't do that, at least in my mind. So
Through you, if it is a matter of that gravel is being used across the municipality on roads on a yearly basis, then it would not be eligible. This is for those grants or for capital improvements where something is being done to the road that extends the life of it another 5 to 10 years. So my guess would be, and it's partly a guess, based on what you have to fill out in those road grant reports every year, that just annual gravel is not sufficient. Again, I'm not sure what Dave's position is on that.
well, I'll get off and let him say something, but again, whether you're putting slurry seal down, I guess that extends the life of the road, or you're improving the gravel on the road. I see, it's a something we buy and put on the roads to hopefully improve them, and I don't know. But so I don't know who could call the ministry, but and get a determination on that. But anyway, I'll leave it for now. Thank you.
Okay, I will ask if our manager of public works has any further comment on that particular subject.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe if I broke down what the maintenance gravel money covers, we've used usually over 2,000 ton a year. We've paid about $20 a ton, maybe a little more in our yards. So use just over 2,000 ton a year. We put out, and that's just to respond to the everyday maintenance on trying to be able to grade a road, getting the shape on the road for drainage. The spring events are significant, getting the summer roads passable, just responding. So general maintenance. So those general maintenance, let's say at 45,000 to be safe, that's general maintenance. And that would not be able to be used as a capital improvement. These gravel plans that we operate, this 5-year gravel plans that we use, the plan is to use 100 mils of gravel, and that's the tipping point. So if you used 75 mils, let's say 3 inches, 100 mils being 4 inches, but if you use less at 75 mils, that might be regarded as it's often accepted that that's a maintenance task, and anything over the 3 inches or 75 mils, if you move up to the 100 mils, which we are applying, that would be referred to as a capital improvement, and it may be accepted as gas tax or some of those other items. That would be for the gravel plan. So looking at the overall cost, 195, if we broke out 40,000 of that and called that maintenance, and then the 119,000 in addition to that would be the OCIF funding for the capital improvements, I think your number would be close to 160. So that would leave you, I'm not sure, Barb, you'd have to weigh in on this, but we need.
So we could use 45,000 from 195 back to 150 as the gas tax or the other one, right? Is that what you're saying?
100%, yes.
Okay,
100%.
so let's just remember that we can apply it instead of applying it to another project. Thank you.
Okay, then.
And
No, I saw, sorry, I thought I saw Manisha's, I guess that was when Barbara was talking. Does anybody still have their hand up? Okay, Councillor Nash then.
yeah, and it's actually just before I spoke about everything, I just wanted to ask a couple questions actually about the gas fund. If I'm correct, I think the gas fund is now called the Canadian Community Building Fund. I think they changed the name of it for whatever reason. But I know there's also other items that you can do. It's not just for roads. You can do items. I pulled it off the website here. Solid waste management would fall under it. Broadband connectivity, brownfield redevelopment such as the Twist, recreation, fire halls, sports, disaster mitigation, which to me, disaster mitigation would probably be some of your washouts and stuff you have, capacity buildings, local roads and bridges. So I think there is a lot of areas there that we might be able to take from and use, not just for roads when we look at it, just when it comes to that item, there might be other spots that we can put that money in, just so we're aware of that. And I believe, unless I'm understanding incorrectly, maybe Barb or Manish or David, one of you can answer it. If you don't use the gas tax this year, do you lose it? Or can you carry it forward to a project the following year? Are you able to bank that money, or must it be spent in this year no matter what?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's Barb again. No, you don't have to use the gas tax. You have to actually set up a reserve for it. We have to calculate interest for it if we don't use it, but it is a restricted grant in that it has to be set up in a reserve if it's not used in the year you receive it.
Perfect, thank you. Now, if it's okay through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just go over my comments now, or does anybody else want to talk about that one item first?
Okay.
The item being gravel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm seeing that Bob Whitman has had his hand up for a while, so Bob, did you were you going to comment on some of the things that Councillor Lamb raised earlier? Is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, he just went way too fast. Can you just tell me what those were again?
You're cutting in and out, Bob.
Oh, sorry, Joe went too fast for me. Can you just go over those ones again for me?
Yeah, there were three of them, Bob.
Okay, yeah.
16,250, which is
Mhm.
Station 1, Truck 10.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that go down by $1,000.
Okay,
16,254, the van, I'm suggesting that go down by 1,000.
okay,
I don't have the numbers here, but I'm just saying take 1,000 out. And 16,304 training, I'm suggesting it go down by $2,500. Those are the three to do with the fire department.
okay, I don't have that's the one that threw me off. I don't have a 304.
Can't hear you, Bob.
Oh, sorry, I don't have a 304 in my budget. I have training on as 202. Is that
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
confused about? Maybe just so we're talking. And it's $7,000 and you want to cut it to 1,000? Is that what is that the right one? We're talking about the same one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think item 304 is under the operating expenses as training.
But it's under transportation services. It's
Yeah.
not under the fire department.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's in the roads garage. I'm sorry, Bob. That's not to do with you.
Okay, that threw me off. I couldn't figure it, but no.
Okay, I'm sorry. No,
No,
I'm
I'm
just
good.
suggesting 1,000 each, that it comes, reduce those other two accounts by $1,000.
Okay,
That's
I'll
all.
look at that. It's just the other one that I was confused about. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have explained it better, but it is in the works garage.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Councillor Nash, then you,
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So now again, I just wanted to thank everybody for, I know it was hard work putting everything together here. So I don't have too many, I don't have as many questions as I did the last time or comments, but I'll just go through them. And again, I'm trying to come up with what I'm gonna say when I say balanced is what I think we need to do here. So some of them you're gonna see I'm adding and actually some I'm taking out. So under the asset management, which is item 16-163. I think based on some of the answers, I'll just go through it. I don't need to give reasons right now, but I think we up that back up to the 327, 526 that we had before. So again, increase that to 327, 526 that we had there under the first go round. And then under line item 16-210, now we're in the fire department. I'm recommending that item from 2,000 be increased to 5,500 because I understand that the fire department needs some pumps or needs to get some pumps rebuilt, and we have it under a capital project, but I think that's more of a miscellaneous maintenance item. So I think we should add it there just to be true to ourselves. And then I don't have anything else on that page 2 of 8. And then when it comes to, now we're into transportation services. When it comes to 16-337 culverts, I know it said it before, but I'd suggest that number gets reduced down to 4,500. I know we have a large pile of culverts there right now. And we spent 4,100 last year, so I'm going to suggest 4,500.
What is it now?
6,500.
Thank you.
Last year it was 4,132. Under the gravel and summer maintenance, I'm going to suggest again what I had suggested before, which is subtracting. I have 50,000 here, but maybe we take off 40,000. But the reason I'm saying that is I know gravel is very important to us, but I'm suggesting doing that as we have a large stockpile of 2-inch and crusher run at the yard that I think can be used on some of our roads. So let's deplete what we have this year. So I'm recommending, I'll say 40,000 gets reduced from the gravel and summer maintenance. And then under the boat launches, which is item 16-339, we did have 3,500, which is actually down from last year and down from 2021 actuals. And when I look at that again, I'm going to suggest we increase it because I don't think our boat launches, again, are capital projects. I think it's similar to the gravel that we use for the roads. It's an ongoing maintenance project instead of a capital project. And I know we take care of 8 launches. So if you take 8 launches and say $2,000 a launch, that would be $16,000. So I'm going to say that boat launch number gets increased to $16,000. So each launch can get a bit of gravel every year. I had the Harris Road.
Excuse me, that's 16,000 from 3,500?
Yeah, but then we'd be taking it out of the capital.
And how much is in the capital?
I'll tell you, hold on 1 second, gotta find it. Unless somebody finds it before me, I think it's one of the last items on the capital, if memory serves me. Let's see here, I know it's in here. Boat launches, we had 20,000.
So we had 20 plus
35.
23.5, and you're suggesting it go down to 16?
Correct.
Okay,
And then it's just a question as we go through, but there's an item, I think it's 16,405. It's cut off on my printout here. It says Harris Road Association, $1,000. I think there's a story behind that. We just pay that for access to a road. If I'm correct, Michelle, am I correct on that? That's what it's for?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it's a legacy issue.
Okay.
I think Manish is going to do a report to council on that when he comes out from under.
Okay, thank you. So I won't comment on that. We'll just leave it there then. When we get down to where is it here? I just wanted to see where it was here. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second there. Hyundai excavator maintenance, I think, the road super had looked at that, and in a report earlier, right now it's just marked as XXXX Hyundai excavator. I just want to make sure we're 100% sure that the $2,000 is good. When we had a report that said yearly maintenance for the first year would be $5,600 when we purchased it. So if everybody's okay with it, we'll leave it, but I just want to make sure we aren't putting in a number that's too low. And then we have backhoe maintenance. I'm going to go back up 16-426. We have $2,700, and item 16-427 backhoe fuel case of 1,000. And I know we now are selling that machine, so I'd say both those numbers can come off to zero, because if we're selling the machine, we shouldn't have those same costs. So I'd put those down to zero. And then sorry. There was a vehicle we were gonna sell, which was still showing. I just can't find it on my report here now. But anyways, we find it, I'll step back in. Just trying to see, Councillor Lamb had noted a couple of the ones I had. It's more of a question, and Mayor, I think you might be able to answer this. Under 16-483, it says Washkesh Dam, 2,500. Is that for the ongoing monitoring, or have we now included that to remove the booms, I'll call it? Do you know? Because I don't know if we were doubling up at all there or not.
No, the answer is no. That doesn't have anything to do with it. There is a requirement for us periodically to have the dam inspected by a licensed professional engineer, just to determine that there's no issues that require correction. And there should really be a reserve for this probably, but in any case, that's another subject.
Okay.
Subject for another day, but that's what that's for, and that's an estimated cost to get somebody to come out for a day and get back to where the dam is, which is a whole day's work.
Okay.
And
yeah, no,
Oh.
perfect. So it should stay there. So I just wanted to make sure. So then I have a line item here, 16 dash, and I'm almost done. I got several more here, but getting close. 16-484-1, benthic monitoring. And I know we've done a couple of the lakes which have gotten the 2 years done, and we may have been picking new lakes to do it with. So I think maybe instead of picking new lakes to do it with right now, we can finish off the 2 years that we have on, I think it's 1 or 2 lakes left to do the 2 years, and a couple lakes we've already done the 2 years. So I think maybe we could reduce that down to $4,000. I think it should still be there just to finish off a couple of the lakes that we've done.
How much is in there, Scott?
6,200 right now.
Okay.
But instead of starting new lakes, I think we can put it on hold and use it out of maybe the lake planning money. And then when I get down to, now I'm under facilities. So page 7 of 8, and there's a couple XXXs, and it says new truck 2023 for fuel and maintenance. One's at 3,000, one's at 1,000. So I'm going to say that those can come out, because I believe based on the new budget, we are no longer purchasing the new truck. So I think those ones should just come right out. And then under recreation, I know it's spoken to it a little bit the last time, but again, I think our recreational committee is very important. It's under 16-790. And I know 2 years ago we budgeted at 7,100, or we spent 7,100. Last year it was 12,376. I'm suggesting that item be reduced down to 15,000 instead of 20,000, still leaving it at a pretty good number, so we can do a lot of good activities. And then the swim program, I've suggested, I know we didn't get anybody last year, I've suggested it be cut out because I don't think we've found anybody yet, which is unfortunate, but maybe it can be done in the years to come. And then the final item I have, or sorry, I got 2 items left, is 16-844-1, and I think Manish or Barb will probably speak to this, or I'd ask if they can just after I say my comment. So right now, we aren't showing anything as a proposed expense to that. And I know it's an in and an out, but we do collect on average, I think over the last number of years, it's about $25,000. So I think it's important that we do show it as an expense, but we also show it as income as well. It will be a flow through and ends up in the reserves. But I think we're just fooling ourselves if we don't show it anywhere. So I do think we need to show it both on the income and the expenses. So on the expenses under 16-844-1. So I have 25,000. And then the very last item I have is lake monitoring and planning. Right now we have it under capital, but I think the lake monitoring and planning, I've suggested we add a line item under planning and development, because I think that lake monitoring will become a yearly ongoing item. It's not going to be a one-off. So I've suggested we put $15,000 in there, which is less than what we had in our capital budget. But I think if we did 15,000 there for lake monitoring, that would help get out and start some lake plans. And just to finish off, I have the debt plan for
Is that,
number-
Scott, that's instead of 20,000 somewhere else, so it's a
Correct.
decrease of 5?
What
Yeah.
what number is it?
on what number is it already?
Account
Joe?
number.
We don't have an account number right now, so I'm suggesting under planning and development, we add a line item that says lake monitoring. Right now, we have a line item under capital budgets that says lake planning initiatives, 25,000, but I think that's more of an ongoing operating number, so I'm shuffling it. I know I'm making our numbers worse, but I think we really need to see where we really stand on the operating, so we're not fooling ourselves in the years to come. And then the last question, which I think Manish or Barb, if one of you can answer it, and sorry, I forgot to ask it at my opening statement, so I hope it's okay to ask now. Under our actuals, so the very last line item on page 8 of 8, under actuals as of December 31st, 2022, we show a negative 162,487. And I know we're projecting a budget shortfall this year of 183,000. So that 162,487, I know the auditors still have to do their report, but assuming that that number is 100% accurate, where will that $162,000 come from? Will that have to be, I'm guessing it'll have to be a withdrawal from a reserve funds that we don't show right now, but can somebody just answer if that shortfall from last year comes in at 162,487, where are we getting the funds for that? Or where are we transferring money from? Is it from the reserves? And thank you for everybody listening.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on that page under the 2022 budget, you will see at the bottom of the page, 246,146. That was the budgeted draw from the overall surplus. And that's how you have to treat it each year. If you have a surplus, you bring it into your budget. Right now, we are in a deficit position of 162,000, which means we have not pulled all of the surplus out to the tune of about $80,000. So that being said, we are still not through the year-end process to determine what the actual position will be at the end of the year. So the 162,000 may increase due to some last-minute accruals, some of the final accruals that usually get done during the audit process. But right now we're tracking not too badly to around that 246. When you have a surplus, you have to bring it into the year's budget and pull it out. If you have a deficit, you basically have to budget for a surplus in order to refill that deficit position, if that makes any sense.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm trying to do it real simple terms for me. I think I understand what you're saying, but if we're in a deficit of, let's just say that number is accurate, which I'm sure, like you said, because of accruals, it might change. But if it was accurate of 162,487, where would that show on our books? It would come out of the reserve fund, right, to balance the books, I'm guessing?
No, it actually, sorry to interrupt. No, it actually comes out of the surplus. We have an operating surplus account that all of our expenses and revenues close into. It comes out of that account. And it is the very last process that we go through at the end of each year that it pulls the money out or it puts money in there. So that 162,000 is actually less than what is in the operating surplus account. 246,000 is what is in the operating surplus account. We will only be drawing out about 162,000 if these numbers were perfect at the end of the year. That would mean we would have an additional 80,000 roughly left in the operating surplus account that we would have to bring in to the 2023 budget. But we're not there yet. We weren't there at this point last year either. The audit will be coming and we'll probably have a final number by the time you go to the next meeting.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Barb. So I'm trying to grasp this because I don't understand, and I'm sure for anybody else that might be on the call, or maybe some of the counselors might not follow it. So this operating surplus account, where is that money? Do we have like $1 million bank account that has been built up over operating surplus? Is that minus 246? When it was budgeted, we can't have a shortfall. So it was budgeted from somewhere. Is it budgeted to come from the reserve of, and that's where we got the 246? We had to get that money from somewhere. So where did that money come from? Even though we might be $80,000 ahead of where we thought, where was that money in our budget? Like if I look at our numbers for this year of 183,000 shortfall, it has to come from somewhere. So where did that 246 come from? I'm assuming it must have come from either a loan or either a draw from the reserves.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, assume that to make the example really simple, assume that at the end of 2021, we had $1,246,146 in revenues, and we had $1 million in expenses. We have a surplus of $246,000. So that goes into that flows into the equity account, which is the surplus account. It is not a reserve, but it is cash. It is an equity. It is the operating equity account that any overage of revenues over expenses flows into, or vice versa. If the expenses are higher, it flows in there. So it is an account that is not a reserve, but it is similar to a reserve in that it is actual cash, but it is an equity account. It is not a reserve account.
Okay, I think that's answered it. Thank you, Barb. And can you let us know what we have in that account right now? Because I don't see it on any of our balance sheets, or sorry, any of our sheets. So I think it's probably.
It is a balance sheet account. That you hit it right on the nose. It is
Yeah.
a balance sheet account. It sits in the same place as all the cash accounts, all of our trade payables. Then we have the overall equity accounts, which are comprised of all of the reserve accounts. They are an allocation of excess, if you want to call it that. They're an allocation of monies, and the operating surplus account, which is also the cash that occurs when you have more revenues than expenses, and all of the very, very large equity account, which is actually our capital assets. Those are balance sheet items. You don't see those on the budget.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the balance, to be clear, the balance in that account is $246,146.
Right.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, again, I don't want to take away from Councillor Bray or Woods, but I just, on what Scott was just, or Councillor Nash was just saying, I want to understand, because I've been writing it down here, on the capital lake monitoring program. You wanted to put in 15,000. I know you wanted to move it from capital into, I think, operating, but you wanted to take out 25, so it's a net decrease of 10?
Correct. That would be correct, Joe.
Okay. The only other question I have, because I think this is kind of sort of one of the elephants in the room, is I'd like David to comment on this idea of taking 50,000 out of the gravel. if I thought we had enough gravel and all we were doing was depleting our supply, but we were going to continue to put whatever, 195,000 or whatever we decide on the gravel down, then that's one thing, right? But if we're truly decreasing our gravel, which is very important, given our asset management plan, which says our gravel roads, many of them are in poor shape. I think it was 26%, but that we don't want to get into that sort of thing. But I'd like David to comment. Do we have enough gravel on hand plus whatever we purchase to put in essence $195,000 worth of gravel, or is there a mismatch here? Can you comment on that? Are we able to take up 50 grand out?
Right now, the gravel you see in the yard, I don't know if you saw it this morning, Councilor Lamb, when you drove by, it's much smaller than it was last week. It will be down by next week by quite a bit. It's not that much gravel, and we're using it right now to respond to some of the issues we have on our roads. So in the next week or two, it'll be depleted right down. So if we were to say we're going to rely on that, well, you should have told me yesterday.
Well, I know, but in the 195, that didn't take into account that you were using this other gravel for spring things, right? Is that what you're saying?
So a reduction of $40,000 on that would be acceptable if that's what you're asking. If you're asking for a specific number, that $40,000, 45, I'd probably live with too. Is that what you're asking me, or is it?
No, I'm saying that to reduce our gravel by $45,000 or $50,000 is
What would
really,
it mean?
really.
What
I
would
mean,
it
if
look
you're
like?
saying, hey, great, no problem, because we're going to say, oh, go out to boat launches and put gravel down and go out here and, work around in the summertime and, use our gravel. If you don't have it,
Yeah,
because we're going to reduce it by 50,000, what are you going to do? That's my point,
well,
right? If you don't have enough gravel to do everything.
yeah, that's true. So what it will look like, I think that's maybe easier to say. So we had planned this year, our gravel plan, we had tendered for Ald's Road to be done. I believe the tender came in at 55,000. Crown Retreats 46,000. Quinn Road was 12,000. Shirley was 64,000. So if we took out 46,000, Crown Retreats could be put off to possibly next year. Again, it would have to shuffle down the road. We'd have to shuffle some of the work down the road, but that's kind of what it would look like. So if we took out that amount of money, you'd be taking out one of those roads we're going to do. We're still going to go out and maintain the roads. What we have in the yard and what we respond with is absolutely necessary, because if we had to respond right now, there's nobody open, no gravel yards open that we can get to. So what we have in our yard to respond to things is resiliency. When these yards are not open or there's no one available to load us, then we have to have gravel in the yard. So to use that gravel, it's more of a resiliency than capital or operating. We can pull a little bit here and there from, but a lot of times when we have an emergency or something, it happens in the night or late in the day, we have to respond to it. Some of that stuff you see there is just for that. It's not to go out the road. We got a little bit of riprap to stabilize our banks and that for flooding around. We had to replace the culvert, a little bit of clear stone for drainage. We got some 2-inch minus. That's probably the one we could use the most of if we had to use anything. That A gravel goes out right now. And then we have our summer roads coming up yet. So I think a lot of these people in our summer roads, we've certainly do respond quite positively when they see us out there in the grader and putting the odd load here and there. We do need some material to pull on our summer roads. A lot of it, there's no gravel to pull. So we've got our grader and it's trying to pull gravel and then we're pulling on rock. And it's hard to get drainage and hard to get anything scraped together. So I wouldn't want to put a new grader on some of our roads that don't have gravel. We're hitting the bedrock.
Okay, thank you, David.
And If I might, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up on my comment on that, if I might, would that be okay? It'll be quick.
Okay, I don't know how we're gonna resolve this matter. We
Okay.
keep back and forth here, but
Yeah, no, yeah, it'll be quick. All I was gonna say for that reduction, I think earlier today we talked about that there is about 2,000 tons or so that's used to improve in general maintenance and do washouts and stuff like that, which I believe is what the roads department is doing a good job at and doing it correct, like, doing it right now. That's what I'd say. Part of that 195,000 is for that 2,000 tons of gravel, which is probably what was stockpiled there. So I think when we say use up the stockpile, it's not to say you won't have any gravel in the yard, because there's going to be new gravel coming. And I know there's a construction job, and I know they're hauling, which is great. The road super might not have known it, but I know they're hauling out of Perry Sound now, which is very good. So gravel is available now, and they've opened back up. So I think it's one of those, just for me, it's one of those items of, let's use up the reserve that we have. We'll replenish it, of course, when we get more gravel coming in from the gravel tender that's closed. And that was my last question, just finishing off, which is why I wanted to ask. I know we budgeted 195,000. Has the tender for the 10,400 tons of gravel closed as of yet, David? And if so, can you talk to that, or do we have to wait for another meeting for that? I don't want to put anybody in a predicament when I ask that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the question is regarding the tender.
Yeah,
It
I
has-
was just
it
wondering if
has-
it's closed, and
Yes.
if our 195 is accurate based on the tender that came in. But if you can't answer that until it's on a different meeting, I understand.
So it is public. The price has gone up over year. So we can buy less gravel for our money. We have, if you were driving by our yard, we would have upwards of 1,500 ton. So over the winter time, you look at our yard, 1,500 ton, which is around $35,000 for the gravel. That's what you saw in our yard. So you never did see the $200,000 in our yard. That's not the way it was. The way it's tendered is it goes directly from to be efficient and get the most money, get the biggest bang for the buck, is this tender to come directly from the quarry and placed directly on the road with our equipment. So our grader follows it, we place it, we set it how it's placed, and that's the most efficient way to do it. If I had to go drive all the way to Perry Sound and we're paying fuel and pick it up, that would be, you'd buy a lot less gravel.
No, for sure. And thank you, David. But out of that 10,400, certainly some of it must get dumped at the works yard. How do we replenish the work yard? That doesn't come out of our gravel number. If not, where does it come out of?
So with the tender, the price went up so much that there was less to go around. So we would have got maybe 1,000 in our yard out of that 900 to 1,000 ton, because the price went up. So last year we got 1,500. This year would have been 1,000, just because the price has gone up. So
So out of the $195,000, some of that gets dumped at the works yard, right?
yeah. So if we get 2,000, then that would be, we're talking about $21 a ton. So that's $45,000, just right around that number. That would be what we'd use in our yard.
Okay, thank you very much.
What's the percentage increase of the gravel this year?
in the cost.
Yeah, like, is it 6% up, David, or is it 10% or what?
Just a moment, I can get you that number. If I can come back to that in just 1 minute, I'll give you the exact number here.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
I've got it, David. It's 14.2%.
The gravel's up 14.2%. Thank you.
Okay, I want to give somebody else an opportunity. We just please just to sort of hit the high spots here, and then we're going to come back and figure out what we do with all this, because who wants to go next? Councilor Bray, did you?
I didn't have very much, other than what's been, some of it that has been already discussed. I had two things. One, that I know that Councillor Lamb was interested in reducing ice cap to 0. I'd like to see us stay at the 8,000 and reduce it to that, and see if we can negotiate with them to be able to continue a little bit of what we're doing. And the other one that I thought perhaps maybe we should look at, and that is the road grants, keeping it to the same number as what we had last year. So knowing that, people will know that we're trying to balance the books, and I'm sure that they would be understanding that we can't always do an increase on the grants. I'd like to see us still have the grant, but reduce it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, through you, if you were gonna talk about the road grant now, can I sign off? Sorry, and just close off until you guys are done with that discussion?
Okay, well, let's see, we'll come back to that in
Okay.
a minute. So we'll pick a point to talk about it, I guess. Sorry, you had others?
No, I think
Councillor Brandt?
I think both Councillor Nash and Councillor Lamb have hit a few of the other ones that I had, so thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Woods?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Not really anything different. I was interested in the road grant 16440-4. A little bit of discussion around that one when we get to it, whatever time.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll put a marker out for that one. I just noted a few things as I went through. And again, these are just to sort of highlight areas of concern, and I guess we'll come back to them. By and large, I mean, I don't know. I normally take the position that, because after the last meeting that we had, the staff reviewed councillors raised a lot of individual items, and staff reviewed them, and for the most part, they either made a small adjustment to it, or they said, no, it's the right number or whatever. And so I don't see how, I don't see that I'm in a position to sort of second guess them on this, nor do I think it's a useful expenditure of our time to sort of pull 1,000 here and 500 there and put it back somewhere else. I mean, that sort of thing can happen during the course of the year by staff as things unfold. Because remember, some of these are subject to they're just things happening that we have no control over. We can sit here and say, you know what, this truck, it should cost us $5,000 to maintain it, and then something breaks, like that one that we had with the box body where the hinges shifted or whatever it was, and it has to go back to essentially the body manufacturer and get it rewelded or whatever, and that's going to use up that whole budget in one shot, right? So now you've got anything left for change the oil. Nothing we can do about it. We have to spend it. So I mean, I think there's only so much granularity we can get to on some of these, but I'll just tell you what the ones that I had them sort of marked. They're not too many of them. I am concerned about the number that is in legal expenses, that it's not sufficient. I know this happened before. There was a bit added. I guess I don't remember what was there before. I don't have my last set of pages in front of me, but I question whether it's 50,000 right now, and I'm questioning whether that's a sufficient amount of money. And once again, you can say, well, it'll be what it'll be, and so if it's more than that, we'll spend it. But that's an area where I think we might be low.
We had, through you, Mr. Mayor, we had 30,000 before. I just looked for you.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, sorry, I should realize that because the note says they added 20,000, so that would have, you're right, that would have got us to 50, but I'm questioning if 50 is enough, anyway. The next one I saw was well, the next one that there was some discussion around, I wasn't gonna change it, but the asset management reserve contribution, I guess that's Councillor Nash already suggested that we put it back, but I guess I was okay with it. If that's what staff feel. Let me come back to the ones that I had first. So I also had a problem with boat launches, but this is going to, and this is 16,399, and it's been brought up before. However, I think we have to look at a couple of these, and this is going to come up in lake plans, so I might as well raise it with you, and perhaps we can get some guidance from our treasurers on this. And it really boils down to the question of what should be in operating and what should be in capital. And my simple-minded way of looking at this has, and I did study accounting when I was in university, is to say, you know, other than you have you'll have a threshold for small items. Like, let's say you go out, you buy a piece of equipment and it costs $1,000. You probably don't want to amortize it. You probably just want to expense it. But for the key issue is the expense recurring year after year after year? So, or is it a one-time only expense? So in the case of boat launches, we had $3,500 in here. That would, in my estimation, keep in mind that council approved at the last meeting to absorb some expenditures relating to the Wawash boat launch. So that's probably going to pay for Wawash boat launch. Those are operating expenses. They are incurred every single sultry year. Putting gravel, which we haven't talked about yet, putting gravel on those boat launches, and however many others there are, that happens it's going to happen, if not every year, every couple of years at least, you know, and there are some other things like that. However, if you take and do a major expansion of a parking area or something like that, or you buy a $15,000 dock, you're not going to do that every year. You're going to do it every 10 years, maybe. So that should remain in capital. So I think there's a bit of a sorting out that has to be done here, based on what is it that we do on a recurring basis for these things, and what is it that we do in a capital. And I'll just mention, because the subject of lake plans came up, lake planning is not something that you do every year. Water quality monitoring is something that you do every year. Water level monitoring, water quality monitoring, yes, you do that every year. But lake planning you don't do. You probably don't do any oftener than you would, any more often, sorry, than you would renew the official or review the official plan. So that's I see that as a capital expense. Anyway, let me just see, there's a couple more here, not too many.
So what are you suggesting, Mr. Mayor, for the boat launches? That we increase the 3,500? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I guess I don't know. We haven't sort of looked at this. I'm guessing that at some point in time, staff would come to us and say, well, okay, this is this is what it makes sense to maintain what we have already. So for example, you will know that our works department, and they did it as the way I see it, they did it as a sort of it was an operational thing. They made some improvements to the beach road landing at Schwaniga Lake. Expanded the parking area, put some gravel on it, made it a little better, did some of those kinds of things. Now, I don't know how much of that was a one-time only thing, but how much of it has to be done every year. But we know, for example, that we just installed a dock and did some fixing up of the boat launch on Gooseneck. So some of that, the purchase of the dock, for example, and so on, that was I see that as a capital expense. We don't have to do that again. But every year there's going to have to be some more gravel put in and some leading up to. So I don't know I don't honestly know what those numbers are, and we probably have to wait for a report. But I would just comment to you that the $3,500 that is there right now will cover Waashkish, won't cover anything else. So if there's more than if there's more intended based on what council agreed to do already, if there's more that you want to do, then that number needs to be of a sort of an annual maintenance thing. It needs to be done. That number needs to be increased. If, on the other hand, these are sort of capital improvements to some other landings, and we're just putting a number there to say, well, we're going to do some more. We don't know exactly what they are, but these are one-time improvements. Then they should stay in capital. That's all. That's really all I'm trying to say. So I mean, I could live with the 35. I mean, I could live with the 3,500, assuming that our works department doesn't see that there's more work that they have to do on landings on an annual basis.
Mr. Mayor, if I
I
might.
think maybe we should be putting our manager of public works on the spot, let him answer. Okay, what? Because I haven't had an opportunity to get his input on this. I'm just speaking about the principle of where the numbers should be.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, if I might just say something, I'm
sorry, I was asking for a response from our manager of public works.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your response for the 3,500, I believe we've done some good work with that money that you've given, that council has provided each year to do maintenance on those. What I did get a number back. Well, first and foremost, we have a report coming to council, which is on Tuesday, and it's going to be an update on the boat launches. And from that, I believe we're going to have a discussion. As well, we talked about looking at the dam, reviewing of the dam and the other landings as well. I did get a price back. It's closer to 10,000. That would be a capital expenditure for that. If we wanted to do all that this year, it has not been it's not been funded. It's not in the budget yet. It didn't make it into the budget, but it is that cost for look at all the landings. Once that review is done and we look at our landings, we could then get into a discussion about service levels. What kind of service levels are we looking at our boat launches? Certainly, they're different from Clear Lake to Waashkish. But as it stands right now, we're not providing a whole lot of service beyond gravel and whippersnipping, cutting back some brush and signage. That's about what we're doing right now. And $3,500 has been well received by the public. I think many councillors could speak to it better than I could, how the boat launches were before I arrived and how they are now and how the $3,500 looks. We've done some capital improvements, one-offs, but I think $3,500 until we establish what our service levels are and what we like to see out there. I think $35 is the right number.
So for the can I ask then, for the amount of money, and I forget what it was that was in capital for boat launches, there was a larger amount there, like 20,000 or something.
You're correct,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor.
Is your report gonna tell us what you were planning to do with that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report did have some recommendations on each boat launch. It did have some general, they weren't elaborate. I mean, the Wawash one's, I think, a bigger fish for me. I don't think I fully have my head around what we do and what's required. I know that when I talked to Ed Bennett there today, he was giving me numbers and information on what they do.
Okay, well, if you're gonna give us a report on this, maybe we should put that matter aside until we get the report, because, you know, whatever we just say today is, we don't have the benefit of that, of the information you do have, right? So anyway, I don't wanna belabor that one. We're gonna get a report.
Could I comment on it quickly, Mr. Mayor, if I might?
Well, okay, I would like to move on to some other items, but go ahead.
Yeah, just two quick things, but one thing, David, you'd said something about $10,000 for a dam. I'm just not sure what you were referring to there, that you said it wasn't in the budget for 10,000 for a dam.
That's the item you asked, what the $2,500 was.
Okay, all right, so it's more 10,000.
That's because they want to charge you more money to come out.
Yeah. So if that's, again, and then I'll just comment on the boat launch real quickly, because I know we have to get on. If David thinks that number of 2,500 is more like 10,000, I don't think we're doing ourselves justice by leaving $2,500 in our budget for it. We know it's gonna cost more. We might as well do the right thing and increase it. So I don't know if anybody can find that line item there. I'm trying to find it now. Does
That's
anybody know?
that was in capital. Oh, no, I guess.
No, it wasn't. It was, I just can't
We haven't
find
got
it
to
here.
capital yet. I'll find it.
Yeah, and when we're looking
Right.
for it here,
Item 16483, sorry to interrupt. Councillor,
16483.
Wash Cash Dam, 2,500.
Yeah, so I think if
Yes.
David thinks it's more like 10,000, I don't think we're doing ourselves justice by leaving 2,500. So maybe we increase that to 10,000. And then just on the gravel.
Sorry to interject, but that is not an expense that happens every year. That's an expense in the year when we decide to do it. And
Okay,
then
maybe we can
won't
put
do
it-
it for another 5 years.
If I may respond, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
Sorry to interject there, but before we get off on this, that $10,000 estimate was for all of our infrastructure on our landings. So that would include Church Street, Indian Narrows, Bennett's, the dam, Bolger, those items. So it would be a general review of what we have. It would include them all. It would be a one-off, and it would give us information going forward to make these decisions as part of our, maybe a part of our asset management, if we would, and it would be capital. So if anything, that line item, 16483 Wabash Cash Dam at $2,500, that could be removed out of the operating.
Okay,
all
perfect.
right, all right.
And
Yeah, right.
replace
I-
with what?
Well, it have to, on the capital, we would have to do that 20,000 we have in place for our boat launches. If we had the $10,000 for that review, we could reduce that from 20 to 10, if that would be.
If I might, I'm getting a little confused. Are we saying we're gonna pay somebody $10,000 to go and say we need to put a few loads of gravel at each boat launch each year? Like, sorry, I'm just looking at this and going, we have line item 16-399, we have $3,500 at $750 a truckload. That's gonna get us 4 loads of gravel for 8 boat launches. I really think we're fooling ourselves by saying $3,500 is enough to maintain the boat launches. If we went and just put 2 loads of gravel at each boat launch, we're probably talking close to $2,000, which is why I'd said $16,000. But I'm not sure why we'd need to have a report done by a consultant on how to maintain our boat launches. So I'm a little perplexed on the two items now, sorry, and I don't want to get caught up on it. I just think personally that $3,500 to maintain all our boat launches on a yearly basis when each one should get a couple loads of gravel isn't nearly sufficient. I'll leave my comments at that.
Okay, thank you. I guess I agree with you. Anyway. There was, sorry, I'm just looking for one more thing that I did have. Okay. The item 16843. Which is, that's on page 11 and 17, and it says planning and development. So I have a question first for our staff. There is an amount there. It was, says 10,000 was added, but it was, oh, I see. It was 40,000 in the previous budget. It's now 50. No, someone, let me ask my question first before that. Is that amount offset by, like, is that the total amount that we pay for planning services? The majority of which is offset by fees that we take into revenue that we charge applicants? Or is that the net amount that we pay for the advice and so on that we get that is not recovered? So the question is, how much of that, you understand what I'm asking? Like, is that before because we do get the principle of planning, by the way, is that we are supposed to recover our costs from applicants, but there's a certain portion that we don't. So is this 50,000 the portion that we don't recover, or does that include everything that we recover?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can explain. So there's a offsetting amount in revenue, and I'm just looking for my revenue page here. So 50,000 would be everything that we might pay out to a planning consultant. Most of that is recoverable, but there's things that aren't, and that's sort of general advice. The ULT hearing that we were part of this past year. So there's some things that the official plan, those aren't recoverable, but applications from applicants who apply for rezonings, that's recoverable. Offsetting in revenue, and if Manish could perhaps tell me what page revenue is on. I've got my pages mixed up here.
I don't think this package, we have a revenue page, do we?
It's page 15 of 17, Michelle, and it's line item 15-380, if that helps you.
Oh, all right.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, somewhere there's revenue there.
15-380.
Yeah, do you see what that says? It says $12,000.
25,000, I think it is. 15-380.
25,000.
Planning and zoning revenue. It shows as 25,000.
Oh yeah, 25,000. Sorry, Councillor Nash is right. That's just a small print here.
Very.
That actually, in retrospect, could be boosted when you look at the actuals for 2022. It was 37,000. So the account and expenses is not a recovery account. That is strictly expenses. The recovery comes from the revenue. So
Hard to understand you, Michelle, sorry.
You know,
Well, I'll repeat what she said. The 50,000. Well, let's look at what really happened in 2022. We spent 66,598. That is the total amount we paid on planning services. We got back out of that. We got back out of that amount $37,101 in revenue that we charged back to to applicants. So the difference is, the difference in that amount is, between those two amounts, is planning costs that we absorb. So let me cut to the chase then on this one, just to raise it to you. I do not see this number going back down again. So I'm concerned that $50,000 is probably not enough. No, it isn't. If we increase the number, the whole amount that we increase it in isn't going to be a hit on our expense budget totally, because we are going to get offsetting revenue for a chunk of it. Keep that in mind. So, but it's, anyway.
What might you suggest, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I just don't see it going back down. That's all. I think I think we're probably, if we had 66,600 in last year, we're probably going to have at least that in this year.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just want to bring to council's attention that there were two exceptional events last year and a couple more. One was the OLT hearing. So those were not recoverable costs. The second was the official plan. Those were not recoverable costs. If there's not going to be a great deal, that was the official, sorry, the OPA2, what I should have said.
Yeah.
Those were not recoverable. And there were some other non-recoverable items that we dealt with and that are standard practice. Like I say, councilors call for advice, staff needs advice. There's things that we don't charge people back for. I don't think you're going to see those similar costs in 2023. At least we're not predicting it. What you will see is, as we change our planning consultant, yes, those planning costs will probably go up, but they go up for the applicant, and they will go up for the non-recoverable, which is our general advice. But the applicant pays what it costs to manage their file. So I think if anything, we should be increasing our revenue. So 25,000, if we've got 50,000 for expenses, half of that 25,000, I don't think is enough for revenue that you will see when someone makes an application and those fees are paid. So all those fees are paid to our planning consultant, but they come in as revenue.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
I guess we'll see. I'd be happy to be wrong.
I think we need to have a good look at that, and we will after this meeting and put some thought to that. But I think that revenue item should be just a little bit higher.
Okay, yeah. Trouble is, there's a lot of speculation in what's going to happen. But yeah, okay, go ahead.
And that's why we don't put in our parkland dedication fees. We don't want to speculate. We don't want to artificially increase our revenue or artificially increase expenses. And we've been through this before. It just goes directly to a reserve. We don't know what parkland dedication is going to look like. And in fact, someone may need to pay a parkland dedication fee based on an approved application, but it may not be paid in the year that the application is made, because there's a lot of other things that have to be done. So it's really difficult to guess what that's going to look like.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
so,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, we're nearly 2 hours into the meeting, and what we're doing is we're adding to our 83,000 shortfall in operating. So unless we get, in my opinion, realistic, and again, I'm not saying underfund anything, right? Like we're just adding. So someone's going to have to go back to the taxpayer and say, hey, you know what? We really tried, but it's a 12.2% increase or something, because we're adding to the 83. We're not getting rid of enough stuff. We're adding 50. Well, let's put 50 grand in for the asset management plan. There's another 50. That'll take away a lot of little $1,000 increases or decreases here and 1,200 there and whatever. And we just it's like a, I just, we're not realizing, I don't think overall, the situation we're in. We're not realizing it. And you can add, but it's gonna, every 30 grand that you add is another 1% onto the 6.5. So it's a slippery slope. If, anyway, that's all my comment is. We're adding, we're not going, we're not subtracting. So anyway.
Hopefully
Okay,
through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll be
since it-
subtracting under the capital projects when we get there.
Well, we'll do that, but I thought Barb said it's they're kind of separate, and hopefully
gonna help,
we're gonna have
yeah.
to slash the heck out of capital, I guess.
Okay, well, I guess, you know, I really only had two items in the category you mentioned, but I was gonna ask you, Councillor Lamb, did you had a bunch of numbers where you said take $1,000 out of this and that. Did
Yeah.
you add those up? Do you know what? do you
Well,
know
the
what-
ones I said at the beginning, which was the,
Yeah.
you know, the trucks and the van and the training, and I left the gravel, whatever, 16.7. Well, when I added it up, 15 grand out of ice cap, Councillor Bray is saying, I think make that 8 instead of 15, but I had 15 and 1,200 for the internet. I had 23.7 that we were kind of saving. If you went on to my second page here, if I had, and again, I had 10,000 into the facility truck reserve, but I thought, well, maybe we could get rid of that, again, just to get down somewhat. And then I had the swim program and the library's lights, and that was another 26,750. So my total decreases were in the area of 50,450, or, you know, just over 50,000. But that's covered if we're going to take the asset management and up it by from 277 to 327. There's the 50 that I thought we could do out the window, right? It's now we're back to even.
Well,
So-
all right, so we are gonna, this is where I kind of want to go. I think we are gonna have to go to these ones and see what can in fact come out. I just had a note here that came, I guess, from Councillor Nash about there was $1,000. Well, there was, sorry, it's not $1,000. There was something about taking pump maintenance out of capital and putting it into operating now. And I thought that this was the fire department. Is there, am I not right in saying that belongs in capital? We're going to buy some pumps. It's something that we're going to do to, it's not just for annual operating repairs to the pumps, is it? Can somebody respond to that? So I can cross this off the list, if that's correct.
I think the fire chief has his hands up, Mr. Mayor.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Bob, if you know, please respond.
Yeah,
yes,
through you,
sir.
Mr. Mayor, it's not the pumps, it's the valves on the pumper truck. Need to be,
Can't hear you, Bob.
oh,
Speak right
sorry,
into your mic.
it's the valves on the pumper truck that need to be repaired. We're not buying new pumps or fixing old pumps. We're repairing some valves that are leaking on the pumper truck. The one-time cost, and I'm not sure where it should go, but that's the cost.
But it was in capital, was it?
It was in capital, that's where I put it. I'm not sure if it was in the right spot or not, but that's where I,
Well, it's a one-time cost, and you're ultimately gonna get rid of the truck anyway, right?
correct.
So this is something you're gonna do once and that's it. You're not gonna do it again.
Correct.
All right. So, but it was in, it was in capital, so I would argue it should stay in capital in that case. I want to make sure we don't. Okay, so what are the items? Let's go back and look at what are the contentious items.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, I think I think there's two big ones. I think one of the biggest ones is as Counselor Lamb had said, we can add all these little numbers and we were adding more to, I think, make it more realistic for things and to try and keep up with our AMP survey. To me, and I'll leave it to everybody else, I think two of the largest ones or three of them is maintenance at the boat launches, the annual summer gravel, if we can use some of our reserves, I'll call it, and really comes down to what do we want to do to our asset management plan. The 327 is only half of what's been recommended. The 277 is even less. I think it comes down to those three, which are all big ticket items, which kind of really sway the numbers. And the only big reduction is really on the gravel that I can see. I was just trying to bring those out because I think those are the ones, all the other ones are little items. I think those are really the three really big items that I see myself.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. And so let's just go down then. First of all, the asset, just in the order they appear in the books here. Asset management contribution. Asset management plan. The proposal, the real issue is that we leave it up where it was, which was 327, 526, I guess, or do we reduce it to the 277, 526 that staff have suggested? Maybe we should just take a straw vote on it. See, I mean, I think there's been quite a bit of discussion about it's.
Yeah, I can go first.
Yeah.
We're caught between a rock and a hard place, and we've got to look at the realistic situation that we're in. And to add 1.5% of tax increase, this is not the year to do it. Like staff said, 277. I think that's what we should do. I don't think we should add 50,000 unless you can go into that budget and cut 50 from somewhere else. But we can't up everything and face the taxpayer, right? So anyway, I will not support putting an extra 50,000 for what it's worth.
Okay, well, let's just, if we can, let's just take a straw vote here. If we just, I mean, we don't need motions or anything, but just how many people are content? Please stick your hand up if you're content to leave it at 277, 526 or whatever it was. Anybody else? Councillor Lamb, your hand is up, I think, based on what you just said.
Yeah, my hand's up.
And who's opposed? Sorry, who's opposed? Who wants to bring it up 50 to 50K?
I'm only opposed because I think we're short $300,000 on what our plan is saying we should be putting in our reserves. That's all. And I think we're going to have a really sad day in a couple of years when we don't have the money in our reserves that we need. But anyways, that's just my opinion. If everybody else is for leaving it, we should leave it.
It sounds like it. That's the consensus, is to leave it where it is. So the next one had to do with boat launches, which was $3,500. I guess the suggestion, what I heard from Dave Creaser is that is too low a number. Am I correct? Should be 10,000 or something like that.
I thought he said it was enough. Maybe
For you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I believe that's the right number for this year, for this situation. We have a tight budget. I believe that will do the work we need to do this year, and then we can have a conversation down the road.
If I may,
All right.
I don't want to complicate things, but I think there was a misunderstanding about the $10,000. The $10,000 that the manager of Public Works wants to add to capital is a one-time expense. It's related to the asset management plan and the inspections that need to be done on our structures, the structures at our boat launches and the dam, the Wawakesh Dam. The $10,000 has nothing to do with maintenance or improvement to the boat launches, but it adds that information for the asset management plan that needs to be completed in 2024. So it tells you this kind of the state of the union, what they look like.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's what the $10,000 is for.
Okay,
So
that is adding these items into the asset management plan that need to be added that aren't already there.
that's correct. So
Okay,
hopefully
sorry, that's, I apologize, Nancy. Now I understand. Okay, so we're gonna leave 16,399 at $3,500 unless I hear.
What was the 20,000 that I was hearing in 16,483? What's that? Is that boat launches?
if I may jump in again.
Yes,
At the last meeting, a number of counselors said, as they have today, that we need to pay attention to our boat launches. There's more that needs to be done. There may be docks, there may be other structures that are important. I took that 20,000 so as not to pressure the operating budget and put it as a capital item. So there's $20,000 in capital related to boat launches, and it could be a dock, it could be any measure of structural improvements that need to be done. Undefined, but recognizing that council wanted more money in boat launches. And I think Dave speaks to that a little bit in his report that you'll see on the 18th, but I agree with Dave, we've talked about it. The maintenance number of 3,500 should be good. And considering that our staff are doing all the work, that's just materials that you have to buy. So hopefully that helps.
and Counselor Lamb, 16,483, which says Wawash Dam, that was the 2,500. I think we agreed that could come out.
I
Did we?
don't know.
Did, and again, I'm gonna ask Michelle and David. Dave is nodding his head. Okay, so because that's gonna get covered off somewhere else, right? All right, thank you.
Well,
That's
we, the other night at our
So we
council
just got-
meeting,
What?
approved 5,000. Part of it was for the dam, and part of it was for dock maintenance. So is that in there, that 5,000? We approved that.
I don't think we approved a dollar value, Counselor Lamb. I think what we approved is just having the Works Department remove the docks and
Okay.
somebody
Okay.
remove the dams. There was no dollar value to it.
But
Okay.
it needs to be, it's still though needs to be in the budget somewhere. And I guess when you're taking me back to my original comment, which was that I was assuming that was coming out of the $3,500, which isn't just gravel, right? It's just gonna
I
use
would-
it up.
I would agree with you totally, which is why I don't think we have enough under maintenance.
My question is, council did approve that those things would be paid for. So out of what, I need somebody to tell me out of what account is it gonna be paid for? Dave, did you want to answer that?
We could use that number that you had 16,483 and rename that the Wawash landing maintenance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, why would we, sorry, David, but why would we take maintenance of all boat launches and allocate it all to Lake Wawashkesh? It doesn't make any sense. I think
That's not what he's suggesting. He's suggesting that there are costs that council agreed to bear at the last meeting that are not anywhere in the budget so far, that we're trying to figure out where they come out. Which one of these accounts on the expense pages does it come out of? You agreed to spend some money. Where are we gonna get it from?
I'm just making a recommendation, shouldn't it come out of boat launches, but we just have to increase the number. We're spinning our tires here. We're almost, we're over 2 hours in, right? But I think if we're gonna do that, obviously the boat launch number is too low. Maybe instead of 35, I think it should be 16,000, but maybe make it 7,500, which includes some of the work at Wawashkesh to remove the docks and the dams and all that stuff. We just need to increase that number so that becomes operating for those yearly things at Lake Wawashkesh.
Well.
For you, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
it's Barb. Sorry to interrupt.
ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can put my other hat on as the treasurer for the Conservation Association. The bill for the docks and the boom for 2023, as well as HoboLink have already been paid. So by the Conservation Association. So those were I believe, the two costs that you were talking about taking on, but they are the first two bills every year. So $1,200 to have the boom and the docks removed and put in every year, and the HoboLink, those bills have already been paid for 2023 by the Conservation Association.
Good.
Is there insurance as well?
I'm sorry, but, well, okay, just a minute. Hang on. You would have paid for the things that happened. I guess I'm puzzled. You would have paid for them even though they haven't happened.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bennett bills us once a year in January for both the booms going in and out and the docks going in and out. So he bills us once a year in January, which he's already done for a
Oh, so you
while.
pay it in advance, eh? I thought, okay, all right.
Yes,
Based on that, I guess through you, Mr. Mayor,
Alright.
we'd take over the maintenance of it then next year, the cost, right? If it's already.
Well, look,
been
I
paid for
guess
this
so.
year.
That's news to me. I thought what you had paid was for 2022, not for 20. I thought that was a 2022 invoice, but anyway, okay, all right, that's fine. And well, let's not belabor it. Okay. So the third one was, I'm sorry, what was there were just sort of three kind of big ones that we were kicking around.
Right.
Did we-
Gravel.
What?
Oh, gravel. Yes, gravel. Sorry, absolutely. So the debate about gravel is to leave it where it was, which was, let me get the number here, was,
195.
yeah. And the suggestion was that it could be dropped by 40,000. Is that, am I right?
I thought this was 50, but anyway,
Well,
40,
anyway,
50.
I think based on the information that we got from our manager of Public Works a few minutes ago, that, you know, it's we got to recognize that there is that, whatever it was, a 14-15% increase in the cost of the gravel. I mean, maybe again, we just do a straw vote. How many people think that the number should stay at 195?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. I'm really concerned, again, I go back to our asset management plan. You know, again, I don't want to get into the quotes about our gravel roads, et cetera. Gravel is very important, and the grading and gravel is very important in our municipality. The costs have gone up for 14%, 14 point some odd percent. You know, the idea that we've got this big stockpile there, so let's, you know, kind of this year deplete the stockpile. So at the end of the year, we won't have any kind of gravel, and we will, you know, temporarily save a little money this year, I think was debunked by our road superintendent saying, hey, most of it's gone right now. I'm dealing with the spring emergencies, right? So if we're going to take our gravel down 40 or 50,000, you better get ready for people on our roads to be pretty obsessed about that, because they're not going to get the gravel that they've been used to. And it's, I don't know. I guess I'm saying I don't support reducing it, but we got to find money somewhere, right? Like, I don't know where you find it, right? It's a big amount, but I mean, ultimately, it's up to the road superintendent. If he thinks it's a critical sort of error to take it down, but if he can live with it down, maybe we go halfway. I don't, but 50 grand out of a budget of gravel, I tell you, you're going to hear from people. But anyway, so I don't know where I stand on the doggone thing, to be honest. But it scares me. It really scares me that we're going to cut out 40, 50 grand out of our gravel budget. But anyway.
All right, is there,
David, anything you have to say on this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I do appreciate your time. From the conversations we've been having, from what I understand, is this conversation ties in with capital, if I'm correct. And maybe if we put a pin in this, we can go quickly through the other smaller items, get rid of that, and then we can look at the capital. And if we want to shuffle around some of the capital and use some of our grant money to keep the gravel high, I understand that was a conversation that was in play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So could we
Yeah.
at least entertain me for a moment and go and put a pin in this and then come back to it?
all right, yeah,
Yep.
we can do that. We can, because we're gonna need to move to capital in a minute. So, all right, the only other thing that was here for discussion, then I think, the only other major item is, well, it's not a major item, but the item that came up for discussion was road grant and,
Well,
That's
just
where-
on before
Yeah.
Counselor Nash leaves us, the ice cap thing. There's
Oh, sorry, yeah.
15,000, and I think Counselor Bray suggested that we keep 8 in and cut 7. I'm okay with that personally on a, for now anyway. I guess we have to look at where we ultimately end up, but for now, I'm okay with it, going down to 8 from 15. I don't know how others feels.
And just one thing through you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Bray, maybe you can comment. The monitoring, the line above 16,484, based on our first meeting, do you think we could reduce that to 4,000 from 62? I understood that a couple of the lakes have been done now. Did you understand the same thing? I don't want to say something that I might be misunderstanding.
I'd like to jump in if I may, if I apologize to,
go ahead.
I'm familiar with the benthic monitoring. My understanding is a 3-year program. So this is the 3rd year for the 3 lakes, which are Whitestone, Wawakesh, and Lorimer. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
I think so, yes.
So that's where the 200 comes in. That will finish those 3 lakes. So next year, my suggestion, if you want to lower the budget, just work on 2 lakes. But it doesn't make sense to me for $2,000 not to finish the 3-year cycle for those 3 lakes.
I agree.
But,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the benthic monitoring line,
The benthic monitoring, yeah.
whichever
Mhm.
line it was.
it was 16-484, and I must have misunderstood because I thought we were told at our meeting that Lorimer's already been completed. That's why I was saying to lower it. So I must have misinformed myself. So sorry about that to everybody.
Okay, so, but going back then to the ice cap question, I guess ice cap, the question is, are we satisfied that we can get something for 8,000, that we can get some work done for 8,000? I mean, this is one of these things that we're kind of putting off the evil day in a sense, because we're ultimately going to have to do it at some point. Right?
May I speak?
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
Council Bray.
Yes, this is sort of a crucial year because we would be doing we've already got our greenhouse gas amounts for both corporate and community. This year would be our year to work on the plan and to set the goals. And then after that, we would be moving forward as we can to try and meet those goals. So I'm not sure whether we can, what we can negotiate with the biosphere on this one. I'm sure maybe Michelle can answer and help me out with this, but I just thought, well, if we could save a little bit and be able to continue on and not sort of stall for a year, I think it would be beneficial. Thank you.
I'll jump in here. Of that 15,000, I believe about 2,500 plus or minus is the annual fee that we pay to be part of the IceCap group. Beyond that, the remaining money is the milestone 2 and 3 work that municipalities typically combine because it's similar. So if we want to just work on milestone 2, which I'm not sure it's possible, but I think we can ask. They're very agreeable people to work with. I think they would see us at least continuing to a certain level. It may not look like 8,000, it may look like 8,500, but if you give Councillor Bray and I an opportunity to go back and talk to the folks, I'm thinking there could be some reductions there. I'm just not sure the exact number.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense to everyone.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess we'll have to.
The only other one I can see on here is Counselor Nash had brought up the idea that the rec committee go from 20 to 15. I know it was 12 last year. I don't know enough about rec, other than they had a great Easter party on Sunday, I can see, so, but anyway, I don't, what's the thoughts on that?
Well, it's, I mean, I guess it's always a matter of, you do what you can, and with the money that's available, we're experiencing an increase in activity, and some of those, there are costs associated with those activities, and there have been suggestions to add some new ones that would, particularly in the fitness area, for example, would perhaps incur some fees for instructors to do specific things and so on. So, I mean, I guess we could play with how much we have, and there's various areas to cut back. The reason that the budgets, probably said this to you before, but the reason that the budgets have not been spent in the last 2 years is that there was equipment which was going to be purchased, and we either deferred the purchase because we didn't have any place to store it, or we actually got grants for the equipment. So we did get, if I can ever get a little bit of time, I want to give you a report, because I think you'll find it quite interesting. I mean, we did get grant money that we weren't anticipating. We've actually got some again this spring that we weren't anticipating. So it's one of the things we wanted to buy was archery equipment. Well, this is going to get paid for actually by somebody else, so it doesn't have to factor in our budget. So there are things like that.
So can we cut or
I
not?
don't know. I mean, we can save a little bit. I don't know about the swimming. That was the other thing I was going to comment on. And perhaps you heard what the city of Parry Sound, or the town of Parry Sound, did. They have put on a special class with a goal to get a bunch of young people to be trained as lifeguards. And now this is lifeguarding for Wabano Beach specifically, because they had to close it last year. And so if you get signed up, you get most of your costs back. And the city is saying, if you complete the course, we got a job for you. So I don't know if that's going to help us or not, but it's
Yeah, well, we'll know before we take the budget to a public meeting whether we're going to be successful or not. But again, I don't want to get into all the detail, but our affiliation with the I think it's a Life Saving Society, makes that whoever is doing the program has to be certified through them. And they're simply not putting those programs on. So it's like a funnel, an upside down, well, not an upside down, regular funnel, right? There's not enough people coming out the other end. So anyway, hopefully we can find someone. I don't think we will, but we won't know for another month or so, I guess. Okay. So what are we doing with rec? Is it going down or is it staying? Are we taking a straw poll? I don't know. We got to move on here. We're 5:15.
Well, yeah, I
5:19.
agree. I mean, I'm just based on past performance, we probably will not spend it all, right? But
Good, let's take it to
we might
15
go
and move
over.
on.
I don't know. I can't tell you.
Hey,
Yeah.
if you go over from 15 to 16, it's not the end of the world, I guess. So,
We had money, we had, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
okay, so let's make it 15. Let's move on. So the next one's the road grant, which I think Councillor Nash wants to excuse himself from.
Yeah, if somebody can just let me know when you're back, I'll mute and turn my video off here.
so are you going to, we could call your cell phone, right?
You're
Okay,
muted,
I
Pat.
think he said yes.
Yes, I'll leave the meeting and somebody can phone my cell phone
Yeah, all
or
right.
text me or whatever, and I'll come
All
back
right,
on.
thank you.
I just have to leave meeting. There we go. Thank you.
Go ahead. Yeah, thanks. All right, so um, who wanted to speak to the,
And I'll speak to it. This was my idea years ago, along with Chris Armstrong, and you know, the program's very important to a lot of people in our municipality. I hear David saying gravel, which is a lot of what goes down on our roads, is up 14%. So I do not support saying tough luck, it's 0 this year. I don't support that at all. I would like to see it 6%. The original proposal was 3. I do think we need to increase it. You know, I'm willing, because I had suggested 6, I'm willing to come down to 3, but I don't think it should go down to 0. So I would vote for, in a straw poll, for 3, but I would not vote for 0.
okay, thank you. I would just comment that the note to this says that X and Y were increased by 6%. And that wasn't my understanding of what we were talking about originally. I thought what we were talking about was that X and Y were going to be increased by 3%. And keep in mind, X and Y, that determines how much an individual applicant gets, right? So if you increase it by
Yeah.
3%, then they would get 3% more. If you increase it by 6%, they would get 3% more. What I thought we were talking about was 3% for X and Y, and another 3% on the total pool to accommodate
could do that.
additional people who might apply, and that.
That is very true, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, as I said, if XYZ Road got $100 last year, then XYZ would get, I said $106 in my last example. But if that is, that road would get $103, and the other 3% would be for, as you know, each year, more and more roads come into the program, and we're capturing more. So if we don't budget that extra 3%, as you say, for brand new roads, which are eligible that come in, then we could end up in a shortfall. And we used most of the money last year. So maybe I misspoke. Maybe it has to be, the 6%, but only 3% on the existing roads, and a 3% pool that may or may not be used depending on what new roads come in. Did I explain that right?
I think you did, yes, yes. Oh, anyway,
So I'm
who
back
else-
up to 6%.
Who else wanted to, yeah, but, okay, so I think we're getting clarity around the understanding that the X and Y don't go up by 6%. But anyway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Others wanted to comment on this, I think. Councilor Bray, did you?
Well, I guess I'm a little bit confused about it, because if we did a 6% increase on the 87,649, that would be 5,258.94. But we're going up to, so I'm not sure about that X and Y, how that works. There was I remember seeing something written somewhere about 6% added to X and Y. Are they separate?
Yeah, Janice, one of them is the number of households on a road, and the other parameter is the length of the road. So those are the two separate components that make up the road grant. So if they both go up 3%, the effect would be that a road would get 3% more, right? They have to go up parallel kind of, right? I don't think anyone is suggesting we redo the formula or anything like that. But there are new roads that come on every year. Every single year, there's a couple more that don't realize they're even eligible, right? And you got to make room for them.
And some of the roads have been on since the beginning, is that correct?
Absolutely. And they grow every year, the number of roads that are on.
Yeah,
the
most
program.
of them have been there for a while, but there's only, there are maybe one or two that get added in a given year.
Yeah, the mayor is right.
Yeah, I guess when I look at it and I see that we spent $86,000 last year. And we had 87 in the budget, give or take a little bit, and now we're going to 334. That's a fair hike when considering what other pressures we have. So, again, I would say the 3%, maybe that was originally I could live with, but I just find that, if we're adding that amount of money to the budget for specifically for roads, that I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about how much money that's going up, how quickly it's going up compared to some of the other things that we've reduced or we've kept at the same amount.
Well, if the gravel went up 14%, we give them a 3% increase, they're really losing 11. But anyway, I guess it's how you see it. So anyway, we need to move on.
If the,
Well, are we going to put, we need to put 3 in. The question is, if we adjust the formula by 3%, all the existing roads will get a 3% increase. If you want to just fly by the seat of our pants, if new roads come in, then we'll just be over budget by $1,000 or $2,000. I do care about the new roads that come in, but if you want to just
And I
leave that.
care about the new roads that are coming in too. So maybe there's a suggestion that we can be tweaking the system a little differently so that, perhaps maybe it's just the way we go about it, that we have a finite amount of money, and then how do we distribute that money amongst the people who are applying? I don't know. I think that that's something that could be discussed, but if not, then we've just added just under $7,000 to our budget.
You're talking about, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, but if you're talking about changing the formula as to what people get and why, that's not a discussion for today.
No, I know it's not a discussion for today. I'm just
But
saying.
what we need to do today is just set the budget.
Yeah,
So it's
Sure.
going to be 3%. We've got to bring this to conclusion.
I just just took the budget, last year's budget, and multiplied it by 1.06, and I get 92,907.94. I don't get that number, so I don't know.
I thought that was a bit high.
So I'm wondering if there's something wrong with the number.
Through your mayor,
Yes,
we do receive one applicant after the deadline, like after September 30th, around 2,500. It has been declined. We didn't pay for that particular road grant application. So that is added. That person will be applying first before that deadline this year. So I factored
Bingo.
that.
Bingo.
So that's an added 2,000, because when I look at 6%.
but they don't get to, oh, I'm sorry. They don't get to apply twice in a calendar year, though.
No, they
were
put
late.
an application late. They didn't put on a time. The deadline is the 30th of September.
Yes,
And they were
applied
active
after
at
that. So we have to go back and tell them it has been not came to on time. So we declined the application around 20, there's a $2,500 amount. We didn't pay it last year. So that application for the 2023, they may going to put earlier. So that we have to pay on time this year.
All
Last
right, I
year we
understand that,
already
but what,
declined.
are you telling me that you took the 86,073 and added 2,500 and then multiplied it by 6%? By 1.06? I mean, I think when you say it's a 6% increase, it's an increase on the budget, not on what you actually spent, because we
The X and
spent
Y
slightly
factor,
under it, right?
the X and Y factor go with the kilometer and the resident.
Yeah, but you understand, they're only going up, those numbers are only going up 3%. X and Y are only going up 3%.
Yeah, I factored a 6% on the last time for the discussion.
You mean on X and Y?
Yeah.
No, I see, that's the, that's what we're telling you isn't the right thing.
And
Um,
also I added one of the road which we declined last time. And we didn't pay that, around 2,500. I included in the budget for this year.
All right, but the 94, 334, 334.14. I'm getting I get what you're saying. You're saying that's what I anticipate spending, but is that with X and Y increased by 6% or by 3%?
6%.
Okay, so you
Because
see
that's what
that's
we,
not,
Mr. Mayor, that's what we asked them to do. So
oh, okay,
take X and Y, increase them by 3%,
yeah,
okay, not 6%, and add a factor for new roads that are coming in, one of which you said was $2,500, and put a little bit more in for other new roads, maybe another 1,000 or whatever, right? And then you'll come back to us. We're spending way too much time on
Yeah.
this.
all right.
It's 5:30, you know.
Okay.
Anyway, I mean, if you're doing a straw poll, I want X and Y to go up 3%. And so I'm for it. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I
Councillor Woods,
can go with that.
Councillor Woods, any opinion?
I was just looking at what we actually spent last year for actuals on the road grant. And then I did an increase of 3% and an increase of 6%. That other 2,500 factor. I mean, 6%, yeah, I mean, gravel's up 15%, 6% would be logical. I mean, 3%, you're talking a couple of $1,000 difference. I don't think it's gonna save at the end of the day if we only raise it by 3% or we raise it by 6%. Either way, it's a program that it's been in for a long time, and it does help a lot, not just on our roads, you know, our contractors, and many local businesses get work from that. So it helps with our local economy as well.
Okay, all right, well, I don't know, I mean, I guess given the circumstances, I'm content myself with 3% a year for 3% X and Y. And then whatever we need to have enough in the budget. Keep in mind, again, it's like other budget items. We're not, you know, if no extra roads come along, we have a little bit of surplus. If a couple more than we thought come along, then we're gonna be over, but doesn't mean people don't get their grants. It just,
Okay, so it's 6% in total, 3 to the formula and 3 for new roads. Is that what we're saying?
well, something like that. I don't.
Well,
But you
staff
said
can work on it.
you could add
Yeah.
some room for it to grow, you know. see
Yeah,
what
the staff can work on it. It's 5:34. We haven't even talked about capital. Let's get Councillor Nash back on and move. We gotta move.
I'll send them a message. Come here.
All right, thank you, Counselor Woods. All right, so we should move on. I think we're done with, as best we can with, now we got to turn to the big pages.
Okay.
Not back yet, but anyway, so again, I would simply look at the ones where there is a change, and let's, if we can, just go through them in the order they are on the pages to avoid flipping back and forth too much. The first thing, and I see, when I see a red number, that looks like something happened. Community Center Communications, we discussed that, that was reduced.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Scott, welcome back. We're on page 12 of 17. Just looking at the red items now, I guess I don't really understand. We reduced, it says reduced by 22,000. I'm not sure what that means, but it's
No.
the number that is in there, still $10,000 in there.
So, Mr. Mayor, there was 32,000 in there at our first go around.
Oh, okay, that's why. All right. Okay.
So, it's down to 10,000.
So there has been official plan consultants. That one was 45. It's been reduced to 15. Am I right? Reduced by 30K to
Yeah.
15.
The discussion at the last meeting.
And lake planning initiatives was added, 25,000 was added. So as I'm going down this, if you want to dispute this, please speak up.
Mr.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, both of you. I wasn't sure what I missed when I came back there, but I guess,
We just started in on capital.
okay,
Yeah.
under the AMP consultant phase 2, or sorry, AMP facilities assessment, sorry, says 35,000. If the manager of public works had said that we're going to be doing a study, should we add that to that item as part of our facilities fit assessment costs? I think, David, if I'm correct, you'd said $10,000 for that study.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct, 10,000.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
but
you.
is that included in the is that included in the 35,000 that's there or not?
No,
And it's not anywhere else in the capital budget?
correct.
So Councillor Nash is saying that is saying that amount of 35 should, unless you're gonna make a separate item for it, it should go up to, where does it should go up by 10,000, either 35,000 goes up by 10 or we put 10,000 in the line above. AMP consultant phase 2, we don't need them, or do we?
So I'll jump in. The asset management consultant is Steen Hoff. That contract was awarded late last year. So they're looking at all the facilities, our buildings. So the additional 10,000 will include the structures of the Wabakesh Dam and the docks and anything else that we've got that's structural nature. So that item can become 45,000 instead of 35.
Okay, all right, so it should be all right, 45.
And just, if I might thank you both. Just on the last two items there, when I came back in, I think you were saying official plan and lake planning initiatives. I know I'm the one that had suggested lake planning initiatives along with yourself, Mr. Mayor. Just when I'm looking at our tight fiscal constraints this year, I'm thinking maybe we lower that number down to 15, get started on some of the lake monitoring, and maybe we'll see where we go with that after a year. And for the official plan consultants, I know it's very important to council. I know we're going to be spending a lot of time, a lot of money on it over the next number of years. But I think the consultant part, maybe we can pick that up starting next year. So I would recommend maybe that can go to 0, just knowing that we're going to have to put that money into next year's budget, and reducing lake planning to 15,000 for those two items. And sorry to take the time of everybody.
Scott, what's the lake planning right now? You're saying it goes down to 15 from what?
From 25.
So minus 10, okay? And the OP was 15 and you're suggesting it be 0.
Yeah, only because we get started on it next year. Not that we're not going to do it. We're just, by the
Okay,
time we get to it, I think.
okay. I have a long list, so,
I guess the argument though was, sorry about that one, I
Sorry.
guess the argument was that there would be some costs incurred to get ready in 2023 to not have any consulting associated with these things. I mean, and maybe we don't need that much, but if it's 0, we can't get any assistance in getting organized, right?
Yeah, and through you,
Nothing-
Mr. Mayor.
Essentially, nothing happens till 2024 is what you're saying. You
Yeah,
reduce it to 0.
correct. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure when we're going to be starting to work on that, right? If it's not until next year, I think we can delay the 15,000 till next year. We all know we're going to be doing it. It's just a matter of, on council as a whole, when do we really think we're going to start incurring costs for that? If we're doing some lake monitoring this year, which I'd almost say is almost part of our official plan. It's getting some data that we'll probably use towards some of the stuff in the official plan, right? We've just separated it out a bit, I think.
Well, okay, I mean, is anybody else concerned about, I mean, we're taking, if you added the two things, well, they're not the same thing, but we reduced 40 to 15. I don't know, I guess I would have reduced it maybe to 20 or something, but anyway. I don't know.
well, my comment on the lake planning is great. Take 10 out and leave 15 in, and the official plan, maybe put 5 in for the end of the year. You know, not split the difference, but if we don't use it, you don't forget, you got to have a little bit of slack in these budgets. Or if you don't, you're just going to come back with a big deficit. So that's where I go on it. But if we don't spend it, we don't spend it, but a little bit in. I don't see us doing the official plan till not in January of 2024, but I see it more, and we'll do this through the strap plan, but more in the middle of 2024, but we have to obviously get ready. So that's my comment on it.
Okay, that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would make 1.5 and I'm in agreement to the 10. I've got a whole bunch of things here. The night of the, what's the play? The Night of the Swords or something? I don't know what it is,
Well,
but I've got a bunch of stuff.
can we just go down the list and, the next one that I see is.
Well, I've got one before you had one.
All right, so go ahead. Tell us what it is then.
I had the computer upgrades in the office at 10 grand. I'm saying cut it in half and make it 5. If you have to keep some old computers for a year, do it. Sorry. But I don't
Okay,
think.
well,
10
let's just let, I want to let our CAO respond to that first before we.
Yeah,
I would, I have to look at we get the recommendation from our IT specialist every year, so we'll leave it at the reduced amount of 5,000. I'll speak to our IT consultant to see if he has any issue, if there's anything that's pressing. That's typically 2 workstations, the 10,000 plus some extras that may occur. So I'll
Okay.
see if we can work with the 5,000 and I'll let you know otherwise.
Good. I had the health and safety manual and the pay equity review are not mandatory this year. We can push those off a year. That's in the to be determined phase. And that saves us, I don't know, $14,000. Again, I'm not commenting on, health and safety. We do have a manual. It's a matter of updating it. Maybe we can get staff to look at it or do it, whatever. But I think those can be cut out. So, and then my next one is in the works garage. So I guess I have to wait for a bit, right, for those.
Sure. Well, let's just keep going. Is there anything under fire department or fire department? Any of those?
Well, we'll get
No,
the
there
pumper
isn't
coming
anything.
to us at some point, and
Nothing in
really-
fire department, sorry.
no,
So,
nothing that I have.
so the next one that I see was the sidewalks from Moore Drive to Marina Drive. You can see what the proposal is there to reduce, to leave 10,000 for the work that has to be done this year. And the lighting in the works garage was reduced. And we already commented on the fuel pumps in the last meeting, so they haven't changed. So is anything on any of those you'd want to dispute?
What do you mean we commented on the fuel pumps last time?
Well, the manager of public works explained why this needed to be done. It's not an option. It's something we have to do.
Well, we don't have to do it, right? I mean, we'd like to do it. I've got it coming out. Again, we have to find $183,000. So delay it. Like, God bless the Duck Rock. They'll get more business from us, I guess, but I've got them coming out. I've also got the lights coming out at 8,000. Go buy some lights at Canadian Tire, get lamps for your head or whatever. But again, we're not going to have this thing balanced unless we get tough. So
If I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, and maybe David, you can answer it. Why is it that the pumps have to be done this year? I forget the discussion actually we had at the last meeting. So if you might remind me, that would be great.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the pumps do not have to be replaced. They're a priority on our list to be done. We got short hoses on them, which is difficult for the machine, but ultimately they're old and the one reads in gallons and the other one reads in liters. So they don't have to be done.
Okay, and it's a silly question, but if we don't have 16,000 there, and I know it's a want, but obviously if the hoses are short, is there a way that we can buy longer hoses for you? At least put something in so you can, longer hoses to me seems like it's a very, very simple thing. And if it's maybe $1,000 or something, that you guys should definitely do it if it's going to assist you. Would that help you at all?
If you drop the number down, we could work with, because like you said, we could buy handles, hoses, and the pump itself that reads properly. We could do that too. Those options too, not buy new tanks, but just the other.
What would the number be then?
Well, I tell you, whatever you give me, I can work with. I mean, there's something.
$2.
I mean, again, I'd buy a liter of gas, but I understand that we have to get tough, and I will speak up and tell you where I can't. I will absolutely.
Would 4,000? I see Councillor Woods holding up 4 fingers.
That work?
I'll take it. I mean, at this point, I'll take it. We're in tough love, and I understand that. So I'll tell you where the pain is. We're getting closer to the water tank is where the pain is. I'll tell you that.
So would people be agreeable if we brought it down to 4th, like we still have something in to allow the works manager to improve it so we can get some more years out of it? Would that be okay with everybody?
Okay. Okay with me.
All this depends where we end up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so Now.
So the next thing I had was the three big projects that I think we should delay talking about till a little bit later. Which brings us to the water tank.
Which ones are these?
York
The-
Street, Slurry Seal, Maple Island, and the
York,
Bunny.
York Street would probably get away with cold patch. I think the gaps are pretty big now, that they'd be pretty hard to crack seal. So we could cold patch them. It'd be pretty hard, some of those gaps. Maple
What was
Island,
that, David? I didn't understand you. What'd you say?
York Street, if you want to take it out, we could probably use cold mix in there, because a lot of those gaps are big now and they need to be something else.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't mean to put you on the spot, David. But have you at any time, and if you haven't, it's perfectly fine, to look at how much one of these, I'll call it a hot box, that'll hold, you know, a much larger amount of cold patch and keep it warm for you guys? Have you had any time to look at that at all yet? I'm
Yes.
assuming no. Oh, okay, great.
Yes, we went to the neighbors who had, McDougal has one. It's a tow behind unit. It heats itself. We got a price from where they have it. I guess it's typically the one that gets used. It's the more common one. The cheapest version of that is $60,000 for us.
Oof.
So, or the cold patch we buy is, it'd take years to use that much cold patch. So I think we're okay with what we got.
Cold patch it is.
That's right. So
Okay,
that was
so,
my answer. Yeah. Sorry. So York can come out. I'll give you the breakdown of Maple Island, just so you understand a little better. Maple Island and Bunny Trail, the consequences. So Maple Island had surface treatment on it. Last year we ripped it up, did some grade changes, some corrections, transitions, and prepared it with new gravel for this year to receive surface treatment. The consequences of not putting the surface treatment on here and taking that number out is just a matter of letting the ratepayers know that it's going to be delayed a year. I mean, there's no loss in cost or value or anything to do that. If we wanted to delay putting the surface treatment down, it's doable with some calcium. So that's doable. The Bunny Trail is a different story. It is protecting our assets. So sealing it, there's some surface treatment in there that's required. So I have to rip up some of it, about 400, 500 meters, replace that, and then put a seal on it. So that, and the price went up on that, and we just got a tender in. So the price is actually up to 260,000 on that price.
Jesus, well,
So if you want to put it off, it may blow apart some more. But the reason the Bunny Trail is in the condition it is because we've slurry sealed the other part of the northern portion. This is the longer stretch, the southern portion. We can do a smaller amount if you want to bite off. Like if we had a smaller amount of money, we could do a smaller chunk of it. I would recommend leaving that part that we're already going to resurface, like that 500 meters of we're going to repair. We're not going to lose any value in that because it's already need to repair. It's already blown apart, too much to salvage. But I think we'll protect our asset if we do some work there.
yeah.
So I hope that helps. Maple Island CSP, that's part of our asset management plan. Our biannual bridge study recommended works being done. It could probably put off, but we should be doing something with our guide rail there at some point. It's
Well, those are the big nuts, right, to crack this thing. And again, you know better than we. And in the backdrop, I'm sure Barb and Manish are saying, well, you got gas tax and you got the ICCF funding and all that kind of stuff. So if you cut that stuff out, you're not gonna, I guess the gas tax you can put off, you can bank that, but I don't know, the ICCF, I think is 100 grand or something. And I don't know whether you can bank that or not. So that's the other part
Yeah.
of all this,
well, I
right?
think we need to, I think we need to hear from them at this point, so we don't spend a lot of time on this if it really doesn't buy us anything at the end. Or if it causes us problems, so I don't know, Manish or.
Well, I
Barb,
think we have to look very creatively as to how we spend those monies, right? If we delay some of these projects.
And if I, oh, I think Dave, oh, no, he's still there. If I might, I think from what I heard from David is the Maple Island, the 105, if we delayed that a year, it would be okay. If we delayed all the bunny trail, we might be spending even more money in a couple years because we've let something deteriorate too much, but we might be able to do something. I noticed the Maple Island, which David said if we delayed it, we just have to let the ratepayers know. I notice it says it's coming out of the asset management reserve.
Which one?
It's the
The
debenture.
Maple Island.
It really should be the debenture.
No, it's debenture.
It should be a debenture. It isn't a correction from my end. It's
Okay.
not a asset management on the report. Thank
All
you.
right, so perfect. So would that be correct that if we were to remove the 105 or delay it, that would reduce our, I guess, well, it would reduce our loan only, right?
Correct,
Unless we reallocate some other stuff, right?
correct.
Okay.
The only thing is, it's got fresh gravel. We should put some calcium, more calcium on it. $2,500 should probably do it. I'd probably stretch out what we got, in the operating budget. I could probably do that.
Or you could, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, you could increase a little bit of like it might cost us a little bit more, but you can put a bit of more calcium down.
Well, it needs calcium. It's fresh gravel, so it's gonna pothole, it's gonna dust. Those houses are so close. The phone will be ringing pretty hard, pretty fast if we didn't. So we do have to put something on there. We already put calcium on very thin, so it'd be hard to stretch out, but I need probably $2,500 to do Maple Island calcium this year.
All right, so the last thing on this page is Aldsbro Bridge. And the money is left there so that the planning and design can be done. Okay,
So the background on that, if I may,
I'm not sure we even need unless somebody is arguing to pull it, right? Okay, so what about the next page? We're on page 13 now, right? Am I right? Did I lose a page here?
No, I think you're right, Mr. Mayor. Page
Yeah, all
13.
right, sorry. I'm just flipping this page upside down. Okay, so there is a water tank for tandem truck 42,000, and maybe that's the one that I was thinking of that
And
we
through,
do in fact need. Is that
yes,
correct?
yes.
through you, Mr. Mayor, I have one idea, and I've actually spoken a little bit when the fire truck was coming up with the fire chief. And I just wanted to bounce it off you, Dave. I know you've said that the existing one has a lot of holes, or it loses a lot of water, I think, out of the baffles, I'll call it. I don't know if there's any way to repair that. I'm assuming there would be in a short run. I know, we're gonna get phone calls for dust and stuff like that. But if we have a fire truck coming off in a couple years, I'm sure there's a way that fire truck, the pumper part of it, the tank part, could be used along with the truck so that we end up in a couple years with an entire water truck for the works department that could be made into a roads truck to water the roads by adding some again some baffles or whatever you want to call them at the back end. I'm not sure if you put any thought into that, if that might be a possibility. What can we do for a year or two and then turn the fire truck that's going to be coming off, that I'm going to say is in good shape because we've maintained it well, and use it and redeploy it as a water truck that's dedicated to you guys. What would you think of that thought?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The water truck, so the tank we have now, it was free because it was rotting in a field. It was garbage, it was scrap. It is rotten, completely rotten. You can't patch anything to it because it's so thin, you can see through it. So, I mean, so we got it for nothing because it was garbage. That's what we've been trying to cobble together and use. So, on those hot days, it's it's frustrating. So, and using a fire truck, I've done that before with Perry. We used they just had one of their water trucks that was a single axle and it held 1,500 gallons, which was not much water. It dribbled out the back and it was cumbersome to use. Did not provide much water at all because it's so small. The same ideas with the fire truck you have now. It's not very big. It's pretty small. It's not, you can use it, but then you got the maintenance of another truck. It's small. It doesn't pull water up the same way we do. We pull from on the side of the road. You could modify it and spend a little bit of money and get it to work, and then you got the maintenance of it in the fleet. This water tank is virtually maintenance free. It doesn't really have many moving parts. It's got the pump in it. It's connecting it to the truck. It's got a stand on it, so one person can put it in, put it out. I know it's a cost, but it'll last for 25, 30 years doing its job. So it would be a bit ignorant for us to go and work with that fire truck. I've done it before in a pinch with fire trucks. We can do it.
And if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if Councillor Bray or the fire chief might be able to say how many gallons we have, but I would have thought that a fire truck would have a great pump and everything on it to pump from the lakes and stuff like that. So I'm a little, I don't understand why a fire truck wouldn't be able to draw from the lake very well and then be able to be used if you can turn on the pump to throw the water out of it. So I'm a little, sorry, I just don't quite follow why a fire truck can't be redeployed as a water truck, just like you see milk trucks. I think a lot of people use and redeploy a milk truck as a fire truck or as a water truck. But do we know how many gallons are on the water truck now or on the fire truck now?
It would be maximum 1,500. It would be maximum. It's a single axle. That it's already got current weight. I would guess it's 1,200, but at maximum it's 1,500. It's got a big dump on the back. It's meant to pull up to another truck, either dump into the other truck and to feed the other fire truck or not. It's maybe I should let the fire chief speak to it. I've used them before. I've been around them a lot. They use different threads, different setup.
We're not gonna make it to the end if we keep sort of re-engineering the fleet here. I'm sorry, but this is not.
Okay, if I had to pick my hill to die on any project or anything, it would be this one thing. Anything else I could probably live without, but that's the one thing I need.
Okay,
Let's leave it in the budget, please.
there's no, just one small, there's no way you can have shared services with Magnetawan or McKellar or anything like that. That's completely out.
It's a nice idea, but
Do they have pumpers and or stuff?
no, they use this stuff. Nobody else I know of uses a pump or a fire truck. If it worked, other people would be using it.
No, do they have a truck for water?
They have a tank the same as this. They have this tank, this setup.
But you couldn't say, I'll take that for a week or two and pay you a bit. No?
No, it's when it's hot out, they need it. When it's hot out, we need it. So you
Okay,
need,
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so is there anything else under it? There's tires for the fire truck. I see there's the excavator is there, but we've already incurred that cost, right?
The thumb
Uh,
you need, David?
For the backhoe, yeah.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, who's Bob, did you, yeah? go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, it's me, the fire chief. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. I don't need new tires.
Bob, we can't hear you.
Speak
bud.
into your computer, Bob.
Sorry, I don't know where that tire thing came from. I didn't put in my budget for new tires. I'm not asking for new tires. I don't know where that came from.
Did you ask for something that cost $3,500?
Those are the valves for the pump, not tires. So I'm not sure where the tire thing came from. I'm not looking for new tires, just the valves to be replaced in the pumper. And it was 35.
Oh, that was that item. Okay.
So I don't know how that got confused, but I never put tires in my budget. Thank you.
All
So
right.
the thumb, David, for the backhoe, you need that, right? I mean, I'm not even sure I know
No.
what a thumb is, but
The answer is it could be deferred. When we tendered for a new backhoe, we looked at the existing backhoe because it wasn't that old, 2016, and we thought, what can we salvage? And the thumb we thought we could salvage, and the broom attachment for sweeping the roads, like we thought we could salvage that too, and our forks. But it came in a different brand, and the different brand does not fit. So we're short a thumb and some sort of adapter. So we need to use the old backhoe to sweep the roads this year. Once we're done sweeping, it's getting surplus. So we'll burn some fuel, we'll sweep with it, and then it's being sold.
so you could have the thumb for next year.
I could have the thumb for next year.
Thank you.
And David, just through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just ask, because you brought it up, for the surplus, when we do sell the backhoe, would we be selling it with all the adapters, the forks, the broom, and is that the 50,000 you think you could get, or is that on top of the 50,000?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question. We're gonna keep the forks and the broom. I'm hoping to get an adapter, maybe again next year's budget, to see if I can find an adapter for it. If I can find an adapter that'll fit, and we could use it with ours, it'll save us a lot of money.
Yeah.
If we can do that. So that's the idea. The thumb, we have a thumb on the new excavator that was purchased, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We've already paid for it. We have it. So thank you. We're using it right now in the Danville's. So we could do with a thumb later. And that's the reason we can sell this backhoe, because we have a second loading because of the excavator. So yes, we can defer the thumb.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's because you did answer my question. I was gonna say, okay, fine, what are you gonna use to pick up brush at the landfill sites? But you're gonna use the excavator is the answer. All right. Okay, door openers, AODA.
Yeah, I've got a
12,000.
suggestion there. I know, thank God Kath isn't in the room here with me, because this is her idea. These are the inside of the washrooms in the 3 places that you can't get out if you're on a walker or something. But anyway, I think we should defer that, and we should look for a grant, and there are grants out there specifically for this. So rather than spend 12.5, let's get on a grant process to find. And I think my wife has already identified a couple of programs, so I think that can come out.
Okay.
If I
What
might,
else?
oh, I was
Sorry.
just gonna say, if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe Michelle could answer this. When do we have to have the accessibility completed to meet the new provincial mandates? Is that at the end of 2024 or 2025? I think if we delay it for a year, are we okay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the exact date, 2025 rings a bell. But I will add to Councillor Lamb's comment. We are applying for a $60,000 grant that's based on accessibility needs and seniors. So if we get that grant, we will be able to fund this, as well as some lighting perhaps at the community center and down at the waterfront. The parking lot extension at the mixing station could be brought into that. So I've reached out to different members of the community, Kathy Land being one of them, asking for ideas for that 60,000. And it's not a matching grant, it's $60,000 of free money based on those needs. So if those items don't stay in, and we get the grant, I'll come back to council and let you know that we're doing these items based on receiving $60,000.
Okay, thank you. Community center. Concrete and community center and library parking lot extension at nursing station. Anybody picking on those?
I think we have to delay the parking lot at the nurses station for a year. Again, we're never going to make, well, I'll be surprised, but I think what we're going to do based on what we're doing, I'm afraid it's going to come back and we're going to say, okay, bottom line here is 13% tax increase or 12% or something. We're not getting there, and we've got to do something. I can't think of, sorry, you're going to have to wait a year for a parking lot unless it's covered by a grant.
Well,
And is
that's
this
my.
part of the original grant that we got from the government?
Could we not fund that out of NOHFC, Michelle?
That wasn't our intention, but it will, the $60,000 grant I was just speaking of, that will be part of that grant application.
Okay, so we could take it out till we get the grant.
Yes, I would suggest 10,000 concrete work at the community center is a need. There's a lot of toe catchers there. We don't want people tripping and falling, and concrete has fallen quite a bit over the last couple of years.
Okay,
But you can't use the balance in the NOHFC to pay for the parking lot extension at the nursing station. Is that? Am I right or wrong?
Well, we'll be using up what we're eligible for at NOHFC. I could look at that. I'll go over that with Manish.
Okay, fine. Electronic sign at library, what's,
there's nothing there, it's done.
oh, sorry, that's the subtotal I'm looking at again. All right. Sunshade has been moved to 2024, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right. So that Farley's Road boat launch. And then general boat launch. So there's 11,000 for one and 21,000 for the 31,000 in total for those two boat launch items.
I think the Farley's Road one, in my opinion, from going down there, and I think Councillor Woods was with me or maybe not, but I don't think we need 11,000. I think we've got a situation where there's 11 or 12 deeded access places. We give them a couple of spots each, we grade it, maybe put a little bit of gravel down, and Bob's your uncle. I don't think we need to put 11,000 and maybe 5 or 4 or something, but I think staff should look at perhaps reducing that.
Well, it's just, yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I'm agreeable.
Yeah, but it's
You're
just
what?
the people
You're-
that have always been using it. We're not expanding it, right? It's just the people that have been using it that have the right to use it in the first place, correct?
But they've been getting 5 spots. And if you give them each 5 spots, then that'll fill the whole lot up. So they don't need 5 spots. They need a couple, which would be, say, 24 spots. And if there's 50 there, or whatever, the rest would be public, or for them if they have more than 2 cars, right? But I think that's where we're headed on this. But back to the issue at hand, I think David agrees. So just take a look at that. Maybe it's 4 or 5 grand, not 11.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council's gracious enough to put any money in there at all, we'll do the work to maximize the parking there. So over the last few years, we've been doing work there to try and stabilize some of the ground and allow for an expansion of parking. So anything at all would go into gravel. And
Okay.
Okay, last page,
Mhm.
folks. We got, sorry, we got 15 minutes to go here, I think.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, David, if we came up with a number of 4,000, like 4,000, what, I know you're saying gracious enough if we give you something, but just to come up with a number, would 4,000 be an okay number for you to make an impactful change there?
yes,
Would that be agreeable to others so we can move on?
Yep.
Okay. And I know the next item there is general boat launches, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, if I just might say my little bit. I know we're gonna have to do some improvements and some signage, and I believe you've spoken, David, with Mr. Bennett about a few things there. So I know we are gonna have to do a few things at Lake Washkesh, but I think some of the stuff might have to be done over a couple years. I don't want to say, because I know it's a long drive for you guys, but I know right now it's just a dirt parking lot and stuff out of Bolger. I would probably say that we might need to get a couple loads of gravel out of Bolger. So instead of 20,000, maybe if we had $7,500 or something there, would that be enough for you to do something if you've spoken or seen Washkesh, to do something that would be a few loads of gravel and some signage at Washkesh, and possibly a few loads of gravel, be it at Bolger? Maybe there's another boat launch that you think can use a little bit of improvements. Would a number like that be something that you could work with, do you think?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, whatever council decides, we will do. So it doesn't, we'll do with whatever council decides. I have been out to Washkesh. With what we have, we can do some work out there. We have plans to do some work out there next couple of weeks. So that's without this money, without this $20,000. I do have a report coming next in a few days, Tuesday. I think that would be an excellent time to discuss what you would like to see. I think we could easily, this is an item that can go to next year, myself, I think.
Yeah.
Well, again, if you're gonna put 7,500 in, again, we're not meeting the target, ladies and gentlemen. So, what should be in there, David, instead of 7,500?
Zero. I would put in
Zero.
zero.
Well, if you're telling us zero, then why aren't we going zero? We left the gravel at 195 or something. So you got lots of gravel and lots of men and lots of employees and lots of equipment. So go forth and do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, you're saying we're not meeting the target, but I don't know how you're translating this into well, you're assuming these are all direct expenditures, and I suppose they are pretty much for, you're not gonna amortize them, so I don't know. I mean, that's, I guess you either do work at boat launches or you don't do work at boat launches. Next year, situation isn't going to be any better. I think council really needs to look seriously at a proposal, at my original proposal, to create proper a source of additional revenue for all these things that. But anyway,
And
we're on the last.
if I might, Mr.
You
Mayor.
reduced it to zero. That's, we're on the last page now. Is there anything on the last page? The nursing station, we can't do anything about. The purchase of
Well,
property.
just back to the last, oh, sorry. Are we on page 14 or 15?
We're on page 14.
Okay, sorry.
If I might,
Thank you.
oh, sorry, if I might, Mr. Mayor.
We're not gonna get to page 15.
Well, we can extend it by a half hour, right? And keep going.
Well,
just so we can
if you're
finish.
willing to do that, I can't extend half an hour, but you can
Well,
carry on with it if you want.
Well, we got to finish it off. So
Okay,
if I
but
need to, I will.
What are you going to do to the revenue side? You can't do anything about the revenue. That's,
Well, I've got some questions. So,
well, all right, you can, I guess you can ask him. I'm saying is there anything?
we also have the reserves, right?
If I might, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I was just, we moved on. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but for the general boat launches, David, you'd said that you're gonna be doing work there in the next couple weeks. Where would we be getting money from to do that if we aren't allocating any money? This is where I'm a little lost. If we don't allocate money, how can we go out and do work at a boat launch?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have in the operating budget, I believe it still stands $3,500.
Oh, okay, so we're gonna use up the $3,500 to do Lake Wawashkesh and no other one this year? This is right back to where we were before. We can't use everything up to do one boat launch.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was gonna allocate $2,000 to Washkash. Of the 3,500, 2,000 would be allocated to Washkash.
Okay. And that would
Yeah,
do
as a
some,
practical matter, you can't, by the way, do anything at really much at Bolger for, I mean, just to get a load of gravel back there is extremely expensive. I mean, it's not, you wouldn't. To do anything material at Bolger Landing is. But.
yeah, no, I would agree.
I just assumed that that was going to be deferred. It's not because I don't think we should do it, but we can't do all these things. Anyway, I'm on page 14 and I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. I don't see anything here that is going to change. Except possibly, well, I'm going back to my earlier comment about the Pool and Wellness Center, and I guess you don't really know, but the fact of the matter is, it's going to be, when it happens, it's going to be debentured. It's not going to make any material. They're not going to have a material effect on the 2023 budget, in
And
my view.
I would agree through you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with you. The only thing I'd note on the pool and wellness, if we don't know if it's gonna happen, right now we're saying we're gonna do a debenture for 250,000. If we removed that 250,000 from the debenture, instead of having, if all the other numbers were the same, instead of having a loan of shown on our books as possible of 450,000, give or take, it would be down to 200,000, which I think looks a lot better to people. And it feels a lot better to me. So if we aren't sure if the pool's going to happen, if we just took it right out of our budget and allocated it for 2024, and if for some reason they've done their independent review, which is going to take time, and there's shovel going in the ground, we could always come back as council and add it to the budget right at a later date. If we just removed it all together and just put a placeholder for 2024, would that possibly work with other councilors?
Oh, we can do.
I don't know. I should ask staff if they have any concern about doing it. I mean, I don't. I don't hear anything, so I guess. All right. I don't know. I guess that's something we do in the final iteration. So, what do you want to do now at this point in time? It looks like we've done what we can to the capital budget. I guess we really don't know what the effect of those changes do all the, it seems to me some of the changes were in fact financed and not just direct removal from the capital budget. Am I?
Yeah.
You got it.
So do we know what effect? I guess what I'm saying is, are we going to have to wait for staff to get back to us and tell us what the impact of this is on the on the actual tax rate for 2022, 2023, I mean.
I may be wrong, but I think it's going to come back in an unacceptable manner, and we're going to have to look at it again, because I don't think it's going to be 6.5%, because a lot of the stuff you cut out, it's a little bit of interest or a third of a year or something, right? Or anyway, we haven't looked at reserves. We, what we're, anyway, I just don't think it's going to come back with an acceptable number. But anyway, I hope I'm wrong.
So
I really hope
we-
I'm wrong with that.
Perhaps Michelle or Manish or Barb, can you, I mean, I don't know if you're kind of tracking what's going on here, but do you have any sense of how long we would know what the impact is, how long it would be before we know what the impact of what we just did is?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Manish and I have been trying to track here and certainly the to be determined funding side of the capital has been reduced. And we've also, some of your decisions have also reduced the draws on the asset management reserves and other reserves. So I guess at this point, we see maybe there's some opportunity to shift some of the unfunded amounts that are still remaining on the to be determined side. They have some of them the potential that we could tap into some of the money that we've saved from pulling out of reserves. In other words, we would shift the funding. If council were agreeable to that, we would shift the funding and perhaps fund some of them out of the asset management reserve. It is a discretionary reserve. It's up to you. I mean, it's may not necessarily be specifically for some of these things, but it is something that we could look at. Yes, the debt financing has been reduced. That would be a fairly small impact. And as far as the operating budget, I think it's going to take a little bit of time to go through and sort out exactly what the changes there are and what the impact is on the bottom line. I mean, at the end of the day, if council, you know, I imagine that Michelle may want to speak to this, but if we're given direction to make it happen to a certain point, then we would go away, take all of the comments that council has made, all the suggestions that they've made, and find a way to try to make it happen.
Work your magic.
I guess the question is what we, at some point, I guess we need to see what the impact of it is all. I mean, do we have, you know, do we have a tax rate increase of 7.5%, or is it, you know, is it more than that, less than that? Where is it? Where is it? And where is it coming in, you know, and
North of 7.5 is my guess.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's gonna be much higher when we look at the numbers, but at the same time, this is just my last closing remark, because I know we all have to get off the phone here for you. I do think we need to be careful. I know we're saying, do we want 6.5%, or is, you know, 9 too much, or is 4 too little? And we sit there and go, well, if we take the loan out of $400,000, it's only going to add $37,000 or whatever it is to the capital or to the operating budget. So if we take out 500,000 and keep our interest rate low, that might only add $2,000. So it looks great, but I think it's important to remember a $400,000 loan at 6%, payable over 15 years, like we talked about. That's $960,000 we pay back. So we've borrowed 400, we pay back almost $1 million to save, you know, a little bit in taxes today to end up paying a whole bunch in interest. So I just hope when staff and all of us are looking at it, that we really look at how can we really save, keep our loans as low as we can. At 2%, borrowing was a great idea. At 6%, we're paying so much when we're having these loans for a long length of time to try and say, well, we only have to add 40 grand to our budget to pay for 40,000. But I do think we have to be really cognizant of a municipality at 6% interest rates, borrowing a lot of money and doing that will very, very quickly add up to the huge tax increases down the road, just to finance that. So hopefully that can be looked at and we can keep that number as low as we can, and there can be some rebalancing of what might have been from reserves or however they do it, just rebalancing of some of the numbers now that was spoken. So thank you all for today's meeting.
I just have one comment, Mr. Mayor. And it's in the revenue. When it comes to planning and zoning revenue, in 2021, we had 37,000. We budgeted 22 in 22,000. We ended up with 37. The last 2 years, we've had 37 and we put in 25. I think we could add 5 or 10,000 to that on the revenue side, which will help us. So just have staff
Yeah.
take a look at that if you would. I think the rest is fine. When it says rental units down there, I take it that's the donut truck or something, is it?
Which line is that, Counselor Lim?
15,385, I think. It says rental units. I think it's $4,000. That's the donut truck?
That would be our rental unit licensing.
Oh, that's the licensing. I'm sorry. Okay. I think that's all I had on the revenue, and then we've got reserves. So, okay, good. I'm done.
Could I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we pick another date for a budget meeting? We work to deadlines. The last time we were 3 weeks out, and that was just the right amount of time, considering we've got the council meeting this Thursday, we've got one next Tuesday, and we've got one the Monday after, which is strategic planning. So we want to be cognizant of all the meetings, but keep the budget discussion going. So if we look at calendars, 3 weeks from today takes us to May 2nd, which is actually a council meeting. We could perhaps do.
But as long as we can get it and see what the figure is before that, right? Like, that's very important. It's very
Yeah.
important.
Yes, I don't think it's gonna take as long this time out to crunch the numbers. We've got some marching orders here in terms of what projects are in or out. So we'll definitely try to have you see what before the normal 2 business days.
Michelle, we don't want to get, and Barb and Manish, we don't want to give up any grant money or gas tax, that sort of stuff, right? So you have to get inventive, even if you have to call the government, say, what can we spend it on? Can we spend it on this, that, or whatever? Just kind of work your magic behind the scenes, because I don't see us getting there, but again, I hope I'm wrong. I think we're up in double digits when you do all this, but we'll see.
So if you're gonna try and set a date, I'm gonna have to go get my other calendar here, just, or do you want to do it now, or do you want?
I would
Can we not do it
Well,
Tuesday night or something?
right here,
All right, yeah, this is the best, just hang on a second.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Michelle, and others, if we already have another council meeting on May the 2nd, I know there won't be many planning items on it. Could we just assume that that meeting might go more than our normal 3.5 hours and put it on with that? At least we already have a date there. We know all of us would be available, and we do it on the May 2nd as part of that council meeting, just knowing that we'll probably go over the 3.5 hours. Would people be agreeable to that?
Depends how busy May 2nd is.
Mhm.
Sorry, is there any, if you were gonna do that, what about April 18th? April 18th has a very light agenda at the moment.
Yeah, that would work for me, but I'm not sure if staff could turn it around that quick. If
Yeah,
they
that's
could, I think
the
that would be
question I'm
great.
asking. Yeah,
No, we could not. We're
Okay.
just finalizing the current agenda and to do
All
all.
right.
in-
okay, sorry, that's fine. Well, just a minute, I'm gonna go.
What would you think of that idea, Michelle, for May the 2nd? Do you think that could work?
I'm going to ask Manish. It's his work that takes the time. That means, so just to put everything in perspective, so for May 2nd, we released the agenda on the 27th, which means that we need to pull everything to, if council wants the agenda on the 24th, that means that we have next week to pull everything together. I would just have to ask Anisha. There's a bit of lead time to get ready for council meetings and have everything finalized.
Yeah, I'm fine with, I think, the date, Michelle.
fine with May 2nd.
No, right? No, second. No. You want to comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Manish and I are just considering the audit is starting on the 20th of April. And with the timelines to get to May 2nd, we may or may not have a surplus deficit figure by that. That's the only issue that we see that may pop up.
We didn't hear you, Barb. Could you say again into the microphone?
I'm unmuted, yeah. Manish and I were just talking about the audit. The audit is starting on the 20th of April. And we may or may not have a surplus or deficit number by I believe you said the report had to be available on the 24th.
The latest, yeah. Yeah, we could work with the 20. Well, council would like to see it well in advance. And when it comes to budget, the council had it on the 25th, when they normally get it on the 27th. I'm assuming we can work with that. We've seen the budget several times already. Well, if Manish is going to be caught up in audit starting on the 20th, he's got a lot of work to do. So we're at the 11th now. I'm going to leave it with you and Manish. I don't know how much time you need. Certainly Dave and I will need some time to spend on this, but
Okay, so folks, I mean, I should have been in the car 5 minutes ago. If you want to keep going on the meeting, I'm going to have to take leave of you, and Councillor Lamb can continue. And if there's, otherwise, we need to
We're
wrap
just
this up.
trying to
We may just have to come back and find this date later. I mean, it seems there's too many things up in the air.
well, seeing that. Mayor
So I
Farrell-
mean, if you want to keep, it's up to you. If you want to keep talking, I'll
Well,
just
let's-
leave. Otherwise,
let's
I
try
have
to
to-
come up with a date.
Hmm?
Not today, let's do it by email or whatever, but what about the week of the 8th, you know? On the 10th, don't we have a meeting of, no, maybe not. But anyway, you know, the week of the 8th sometimes seems to me, it's going to be another Zoom meeting probably, eh?
I would say so.
Okay,
You know,
well,
the audit is pending. We could maybe aim for May 9th, but I
Yep.
agree. We'll do it by email and try to get some consensus that way.
8th, 9th, and 10th are phone on, remember?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Hold on.
The 9th of the afternoon is it finishes at noon on the 10th, so you could do it on the 10th maybe, but
anyway, canvass that week, the 10th or the 11th, maybe do it on the 11th. It's a Thursday, but do it on the, you know, let's find a date that week. Let's wrap her up and.
okay, can I get a motion then to reconvene to regular meeting, please?
I'll make the
move,
motion.
Mr. Mayor.
I'll
second
second it.
Councillor Lamb, who seconded? Sorry? Councillor
Councillor-
Woods. I got you. And it's 6:37 PM. All those in favor? Okay, we are back in regular session. Two more quick things to do. Confirming bylaw or confirmatory bylaw. Mover and seconder.
I'll move that.
Okay, I got Councillor Bray and Councillor Nash. All those in favor? Thank you. And adjournment.
I'll move adjournment.
Councillor Woods moves and Councillor Lamb seconds. So he had his hand up first.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the Blue Jays game. If you get a chance to watch it, I won't, but.
See everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.